but Drew Hernandez is a strong-minded individual.
Exposing lawlessness.
Drew Hernandez, who is ideological.
Finding the truth.
And use the word Antifa.
This is what they do.
Battling
They're
mainstream
liars. The woke mob, all they can do is lie.
These are the front lines.
Welcome to TPUSA Live. My name is Drew Hernandez, host of Frontlines. Here's what we got coming up on the live stream today. Charlie Kirk is joining me live here on Frontlines today. We're talking about some of the latest insane headlines as the far left continues targeting children with their trans agenda. Then we head over to the couch for your TPUSA Live with Jon Root and your favorite contributors. They are breaking down some of the aspects of Putin's personal life. Is he actually a sociopath? And coming up on Human Events Daily, Jack Posobiec is bringing on a well-respected military analyst to explain why he thinks the U.S. is misreading Russia's strategy. Then AP Sports reporter Larry Lage shares his experience covering the 2022 Olympics on breakaway. Plus, what's the deadliest virus in the world? It's not COVID, but another C word, communism. Stay tuned after Jack for a special episode of Socialism Sucks. And as always, Alex Clark is rounding out the day, bringing you all things pop culture without the propaganda on politics. My name is Drew Hernandez, and you are now on the front lines. When we come back, Charlie Kirk. So stay with us.
Right, guys, you have signed up, right? You've joined freedomsquare.com. If you haven't, why not? This should have happened a decade ago. How did somebody not think of this earlier? If you're a business owner, we have a business directory to promote your business to patriots across the nation. So if you want to buy American, if you want to sell American, we have a business directory. Whatever it is, go now.
Join us in the fight for freedom. Welcome to Freedom Square.
All right, welcome back to Frontlines. I'm here with the great Charlie Kirk. Charlie,
I'm here, man.
Here we
Congrats
are. We
on
here
the show.
now.
It's looking great.
Thank you, brother. You know, let's just dive into this breaking news we have here. The Post Millennial is reporting that far-left protesters have shut down the University of North Texas event featuring a father who lost custody of his trans child. Just to give a little bit of background, this is what took place. A University of North Texas classroom in Denton erupted into chants of "F these fascists" and slammed their fists on the desk as Jeff Younger tried to speak on Wednesday. Their professor encouraged them to shout Younger down, telling them to be louder. Younger, who is running for a seat in the Texas House, lost custody of his 9-year-old twins because he opposed the medical transition of one of them. His ex-wife began pushing for gender transition when the child was just 3 years old. If we could run, before we get Charlie's take here, let's run that clip of these insane people. Like the father's literally like misgendering them.
I almost timed that perfectly, Drew. Man, I was waiting for you to call for the tape.
Let's run this clip
So
of the
close.
father actually misgendering these psychopath activists. Let's run that.
So close. I can't do this, but I got it.
You're a woman.
So this trans person is triggered out of its mind because the father's misgendering everybody in the room.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So what event is this again?
This was at the University of North Texas.
Yeah, okay. But
A Republican club put this on, and it was called, let me pull this up real quick.
Some like transgender thing? Or?
Yes, it was called, the event was titled Criminalize Child Transition.
Yes, of course. Absolutely. I mean, I agree with that completely.
So here we go. Antifa, someone in black bloc pulls up, takes them off stage.
Yeah.
What's your reaction, Charlie?
They won't. Good luck doing that to us. So yeah, look, the reaction is this. I mean, it should be criminalized. I mean, the chemical castration of our children is something that is irreversible and is so damaging to young people in more ways than one. I mean, look, when you're a teenager in particular, you're having identity issues. But now there's an entire new predatory campaign to try to go after 12, 13, and 14-year-olds to believe that any sort of insecurity actually might be an identity issue. And insecurity is normal, right? There's ways to deal with that. You mature, you find friends, you find community, your parents get involved, and hopefully you're able to develop past that. But when all of a sudden you say, oh no, therefore you're insecure, now we want to make whatever sort of inclination you have permanent. And yeah, we're starting to see this happen at rapid rates. I mean, in states like Oregon, you can have gender reassignment surgery paid for by the taxpayer without parental consent. And so in Arkansas, we saw the whole debate last year, and the governor of Arkansas believed that it was somehow the conservative position to say that children should be able to do irreversible damage and chemically castrate themselves. So, I mean, look, this is a major issue, and it's one that is getting swept under the rug, but it also kind of exposes a fault line in kind of the big liberal bargain, right? So at first it was that we must accept people like Caitlyn Jenner or Bruce Jenner or whatever, just Jenner, front page of Vanity Fair. If you don't agree with it, then you're a bad person. Like, okay, most people are like, I don't agree with it, but like, okay, I'll sit down and shut up. But now the new bargain is like, if you get in the way of us finding new recruits into the transgender community, then you're a terrible person.
Even your children.
That's
think
correct.
that's the main argument here, I think, is, listen, someone wants to go do whatever they want with their body, whatever, have at it. But now when they start targeting kids,
yes,
and they start targeting parents that don't want this for their kids, you get these woke mobs like this.
So is this in Texas recently?
This was outside. So the post-millennial is also
reporting that. We should go do an event
that
there, Drew.
We should. Just to give you guys the report, the conservative students were reportedly chased from the building. Far-left activists and students harassed members of the Young Conservatives of Texas as they left the building where Younger had attempted to give the talk. So the footage you guys are seeing right there was actually outside.
Thank you for covering this. This
and
is awesome.
But this is what people are concerned about. It's like, listen, now they're going after children. They've been going after children, but they're going after parents that don't want to mutilate the genitals of their children.
Yes, that's right.
And not only is the federal government getting involved, if we can get this up as well, President Biden announced in the State of the Union that he has the backs of trans kids. If we can air that clip real quick. I'll use your
For our LGBTQ plus Americans, let's finally get the Bipartisan Equality Act to my desk. The onslaught of state laws targeting transgender Americans and their families. It's simply wrong. And I've said last year, especially to our younger transgender Americans, I'll always have your back as your president so you can be yourself and reach your God-given potential.
That's a scary thought of Biden having the back of a child. Charlie.
Yeah, the whole. I mean, that's just beyond creepy. But I mean, look, there's a reason why they're going after children is because children are vulnerable, right? And so, what do you do with innocence? You know, the question that every civilization has to ask is, what do you do with people that don't know any better? And a mature and virtuous society tries to point those people towards the development of things that are good and true and beautiful. A malevolent society takes advantage of those people. And that's something that the left has always been, every totalitarian, authoritarian government has always been focused on trying to corrupt the innocence of children, always. Whether it be the sexual revolution of the 1960s, whether it be the behavior of Stalin or Mao, or even, you know, people don't talk about this, the National Socialist Worker Party of Germany, Hitler used to take 13-year-old boys away from their mothers, send them to summer camps and impregnate other women.
Hitler Youth.
That's exactly right. It was a well-established practice of totalitarian governments to try and strip away the innocence of potential children. Children are always used as political propaganda tools of the regime, always. And you're seeing it no different here. The problem, though, is that it's kind of laced with this really weird tension between tolerance and tyranny, right? So it's like, okay, just give us an opportunity. Like, just leave us alone. And if you don't, I'm going to storm your apartment and put you in jail. Like, whoa. Like, I thought you just said, like, leave us alone.
Yeah, if you don't listen to us, we're going to take your child. If you don't want to mutilate the genitals of your child, we're going to take your child from you. And that's liberty, and that's being tolerant.
Yeah, but it's like the same sentence. It was like, hey, just give us a chance to live our life. Everything's cool. Live and let live. And if you disagree with that, you're getting audited. I'm going to drone your house. It's like, oh, really? Like, that escalated really quickly.
It's literally tyranny clothed, disguised in the name of equality, liberation, liberty, and all this garbage.
This is a working thesis, and I've done some really deep reflecting and meditating on this, and it's not totally built out yet, but I believe it's inevitable. I do not think you can have a tolerance campaign without having it followed by a tyranny campaign. You can't.
No.
It's impossible. Now, that's not to say that tolerance can't be virtuous in some ways, right? But I prefer more like acceptance than tolerance. But this idea that like this forced, mandated, like you must say the creed that like transgenderism is awesome, and if you don't say that, then we're going to punish you. Like that's the second part of it. And I mean, the LGBT movement was the best at this, but like a second wrinkle of this, just like the transgender part of it, look how we went from Vanity Fair, Jenner, to all of a sudden like we're coming after your children. And if you dare disagree, we're going to come take the microphone from you and go after you.
And this is what people don't understand. Like when we have the moral conversation in all of this, or the spiritual aspect, right, is if a society forsakes its morality entirely, this is where this stuff goes. There's no avoiding it. There's no getting around it. There's no saying like, oh, this is just where we want to be tolerant and we just want people to live their lives. No, when you forsake total morality in the heart of a human being in a society, this is where it goes.
Well, and this
total
is
depravity.
Yeah, and this is the great lie of kind of what I would call détente neoliberalism, right? So, and I think ideally it's wonderful to want to live in a world where everyone can be in their own box and you do your own thing, but it's widely unrealistic, right? It's mostly unrealistic because those of us that have certain values are going to get targeted and have a war waged against us, which is what we see right now. And this kind of the next step of it is eventually the person who's like, unshackle us, right, is that they're going to come back for revenge. And they're going to be willing to use political power or cultural power to then try to punish or harm people that they disagree with. And so the question is, in a civil, this is why we're conservatives, right, is that we actually don't like that, right? We want to try to prevent revenge campaigns from going after people that want to pursue virtue, right? And the best way to do that is to protect innocence. The innocence of children is one of the sacred things that a society that doesn't protect the innocence of children falls apart. I'll prove it to you, right? Like, you can't possibly say that a civilization that sex traffics kids is a society you want to live in, right? You can't possibly say that a society that embraces pedophilia is a society you want to live in, right? So the first question you have to ask is, how do you protect your children, if you at all? And make no mistake, when you allow 1 million abortions a year, don't be surprised when you don't protect the children outside of the world.
100%. And I think what people are asking themselves is like, how far does this really go? And I think if you take a look at society and history, you see how far these things have really gone. You look at the biblical history accounts, Sodom and Gomorrah, this stuff goes far.
And like, look, I'm a Christian, you're a Christian, we can talk about the biblical side of it, but like, I think one that everyone will agree with is that there are laws of nature. And we believe that the laws of nature, and nature is God, that there was a designer of that. And there is this kind of repeated inclination to want to always kind of devolve into degeneracy. It's like people can't even help themselves in some ways. And so that's where all of a sudden we conservatives matter so much, where we actually have to make the unpopular yet virtuous stand. It's like, actually, no, you're not going to be able to go after children in Texas that are 13 years old and give them pills that are going to change their genetic makeup. Because guess what? What if they regret it by the time they're 22? Irreversible. Sorry, thanks for shopping. Their entire genetic makeup is messed up. And I agree with you. You're 30 years old, 40 years old, whatever, do whatever you want. Like, I'm not going to get involved in that. Like, we're the true liberals in that regard. Children is a line that I refuse to cross.
But here's the crazy thing too, Charlie, is like, listen, I was a youth pastor for a few years, and I was dealing with, kids that thought they were trans, kids that thought they were gay, and would have to have these conversations with them, like bring them to reality of what this looks like in the lifestyle. Some of them would look at me and be like, really? Like, that's gonna happen? Like, yeah, that's where this leads. And a lot of the kids that I dealt with in like high school and junior high, this was more of like a trendy thing to do to become popular overnight, like over TikTok, and that's being taken.
I come under great criticism when I say that, but I think it's totally true.
But here's the thing too, is the people that are now coming out of this lifestyle that are saying, I was lied to, I was mutilated, I could never go back on any of this. Even those people are being silenced and demonized in the media that are coming out and saying, this ruined my life. I think that is even more sinister, because you have people that are being damaged that are now coming out saying, this destroyed my life, but we're going to shut them up because we want to continue to damage the masses. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do, totally. And so, I mean, this is the question that's in front of the conservative movement is, do you fight for what is virtuous even when it is difficult? And I mean, this is a hill I will die on. I think that it is virtuous. I think it's the pinnacle of what is necessary of a defense of a decent society that I want to live in and you want to live in, which is, what do you do with your children?
Yeah, 100%. Charlie,
thanks
man.
For
joining me.
Appreciate it.
hanging
God
out
bless
with
you.
me.
Congrats
Hey,
on the new show. You're
thank
doing
you.
great.
Ladies and gentlemen, when we come back, we have an update from the People's Convoy. We'll see how that's going, so stay with us.
This is your brain. This is your brain on socialism. Any questions?
All right, guys, you have signed up, right? You've joined freedomsquare.com. If you haven't, why not? This should have happened a decade ago. How did somebody not think of this earlier? If you're a business owner, we have a business directory to promote your business to patriots across the nation. So if you want to buy American, if you want to sell American, we have a business directory. Whatever it is, go now.
Join us in the fight for freedom. Welcome to Freedom Square.
All right, welcome back to Frontlines. I'm your host, Drew Hernandez. But before we get into this People's Convoy update, we all shop at the grocery store because we all need food. It's a necessity, right? What if you could buy the food you need and donate to TPUSA? Now you can with Good Ranchers. They sell 100% American meat, and they believe so much in what we are doing that they will donate $50 to TPUSA on your behalf when you purchase from them. Good Ranchers delivers steakhouse quality beef, chicken, and others. So make sure that you check them out at tpusa.com, and also make sure to look at the Good Ranchers website to get your donation and see how that is working out as well. These are real American people trying to help American businesses, and I think that's a cause we can all get behind. You can do good while you eat good. You can support country-changing programs by shopping at Good Ranchers instead of giving your money to organizations that hate you and your values. Head on over to goodranchers.com/TPUSA today to get good ribeyes, New York strips, gourmet burgers, and more. Order now with the code TPUSA to get $50 donated to our mission now. Alrighty, so the People's Convoy. There's been a lot of drama around this, a lot of concerns around the People's Convoy. Some people think it's a Fed op. Some people think it's going to get infiltrated by the feds. A lot of people are asking some serious questions. I mean, the convoy in Canada got demonized as a bunch of white supremacist neo-Nazis that were a threat to society and domestic terrorists, and then the Trudeau regime moved in on them. A lot of people are asking themselves, is this how the American convoy is going to end up? I think those are some genuine questions. Well, we got my good friend Elad Elihu. He has been on the ground. He is a reporter for Timcast IRL, the great Tim Pool. Elad is joining me now to give us an update of what he's been seeing on the ground. We'll get him back right now as we go in. We're having some technical issues. But listen, I just want to encourage the American people. I don't want people to be afraid to protest. I don't want people to be scared of exercising their First Amendment right to peacefully assemble and express their grievances against the local government, the federal government. We should never be in a position like that. But always be careful with what's happening at these protests, because we've seen in the past that they have been infiltrated by provocateurs. So this is why I wanted to talk to Elad. He is a reporter, like I said, with Timcast IRL. Elad, what's going on, bro? What's the latest updates with the People's Convoy?
Hey, Drew, first things first, congrats on the new show, and thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you, bro.
First things first, there was originally two convoys. You kind of mentioned it because you said there was like the Freedom Convoy, and then there was also the People's Convoy. The People's Convoy originally took off last Wednesday from Los Angeles, and I was originally meant to link up with the Freedom Convoy, which was supposed to take off on Friday. Mm-hmm. For the People's Convoy, it started off pretty nice. As I understand, there were a couple of hundred of trucks there, but wait 1 second. Let me show you a little bit of what's going on right now. So at a lot of these overpasses throughout Ohio, I'm actually beside the convoy right now. What you could see is, there's a lot of people, 50 to 100, we might only get a dozen or so sometimes. But at a lot of these overpasses, while the truckers are driving by, they're honking their horns at them, and they have people coming by. What I was going to say is one of the convoys ended up flaming out, but we do have a nice, sizable people's convoy now making their way to the next stop is Cambridge, Ohio, and they're like picking up more people as they go, and they're making some. It's turning out to be a nice little convoy.
Got it. A lot. I've been seeing all kinds of different reports from different media outlets talking about the size of the convoy. Some people are saying there's 5,000, 7,000. I think I saw one report claiming there were 10,000 trucks in the convoy. What are you seeing on the ground? Is that accurate?
Hey, look, Drew, between me and you, people always like to exaggerate what they got going on in their convoy, in whatever. We see this, among many politicians and groups. From what I've seen from the past maybe 5 days, closely watching the convoy and the truckers and the people, I'd say if we're talking specifically about truckers, semi trucks, actual trucks, I'd say a few hundred at most. I wouldn't say there's more than 300 actual semi trucks, driving out here. 300 at most, I'd say around there. There's also, a few hundred cars, campers, but no more. I wouldn't say thousands. I wouldn't say thousands.
Gotcha. We just want the truth. That's all we want. Speaking of that, Alad, what we saw with the Canadian convoy, right? It got demonized. The federal government in Canada came out and said they're a bunch of, domestic terrorists. They're a threat. They're honking. It's, you know what I mean? And then they moved in on them. How have some of your conversations been with some of the truckers on the ground? Because you've had some good footage that's been going up with Timcast, by the way. How have your conversations been? Are these peaceful people? How's it been?
The truckers that I've spoken to at least about a dozen truckers here. They emphasized the peaceful aspects of the protest. I think they've picked up on how non-peaceful protests have kind of been demonized in the past. Their strategy was not to infiltrate inside DC. As I understand, trucks are not allowed in DC. They have to hang out around the Beltway around DC. They said some of them anticipated being greeted by National Guard or some of the local DC police, but they didn't expect it to get violent, and they expect it to be, not politely greeted by the police, but they didn't expect a violent crackdown that we saw with in Canada with Trudeau. I also spoke to them specifically about if they were concerned about, supporters of the Canadian convoy. Wait, here's another. I'm passing by another overpass.
Nice.
Here, they honk their horns as we're pulling up on that. We're getting honky out here.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Alad, when it comes to this convoy, I know the Canadian one was surrounded around, the anti-mandate protest, and this one was supposed to kind of mirror it. But some of the mandates across the United States have been getting lifted, obviously for political purposes. We know we're in a midterm year. But have you been talking to some of these truckers and asking them, like, hey, if this isn't really so much about the mandates anymore, what is it about? Are there other issues that they're protesting?
I've seen just as many Let's Go Brandon and FJB flags as I have seen signs supporting the truckers. I'm being honest. I've seen just as much, if not more, apparel of FJB than we love the truckers. There has been some pro-trucker stuff, don't get me wrong. But even on the truckers, even when the truckers have stuff on their vans, it's more, let's go, Brandon. This is definitely a MAGA-filled movement.
Gotcha. Many people had concerns about this thing going to D.C., and we all know why. Some people, were concerned that, hey, is this thing going to be is it a Fed op? Is it going to be infiltrated by feds? It's sad that we're in this place where people are afraid to express their First Amendment right to peacefully assemble and protest, but have you seen anything sus, bro? Like, have you seen anyone trying to start violence that just kind of sticks out like a sore thumb? Like, yeah, this is obviously a Fed. This guy doesn't belong here.
So I haven't seen anything exceptionally suspicious, and I think it's been, I don't think there's any question.
Gotcha. Well, guys, Alad is on the ground, and I'm thankful that he's able to give us this update. We'll try and get him back right now. But I mean, these are the concerns that people have. Oh, here we go. We got him back. Elad, can you hear me?
Want to be Drew. Once people raise a lot of money, you need to start scrutinizing funds. And the People's Convoy raised over $1.6 million at this point. There's a few hundred truckers here. I know they have been supplying truckers with free gas, but I think it's also important for us to, in a world full of scammers, I'm not saying these people are scammers, but we need to scrutinize where the dollars of this goes because they have raised so much money.
Interesting. Last question, Elad. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, man. Love you, bro. So what's the end game, dude? Have you been talking to some of the truckers and asked them, like, so what happens when you guys get to D.C.? What's the end game? What's going to happen? Like you said, they'll show up at the Beltway. What have you been hearing on the ground?
A few truckers told me they're immediately going to go back to work after. And the truth is, this entire protest from the beginning has been extremely unorganized. There's been, I think there are other convoys potentially linking up with this one. And that's also why it's been a little bit difficult to get exact numbers. But I don't think there's a clear direction for what exactly is going to happen. I spoke to, that they were going to be peaceful and there was no exact rallying point. They're just going to go around the DC Beltway. And I'll have an answer for you in a couple of days when I get there, Drew.
Gotcha. Dude, Elad, thank you so much with the update, bro. Where can people follow your great work and where can people see all your work with Timcast?
Absolutely. You guys could find me on Instagram and Twitter. It's Barely Informed with Elad. And you could just go on timcast.com to also check out some of my work. Thank you so much for having me on, Drew, and I'm excited about your show.
Dude, thank you, man. We love you. All right, there goes Elad, guys. Hey, listen, we're going to continue to stay with this because, like I always tell you guys, we just want the truth. We don't want the propaganda. We don't want lies. We don't want people telling us what they think we want to hear. When it comes to on-the-ground reporting, we have to make sure that we're talking to people that are actually there and we're getting the straight facts. But like I said, it is sad that we're in this kind of part of the timeline in the United States of America where because of what we've seen with Canada, we've seen peaceful protesters get demonized because of what we've seen with other incidences that have happened in January of 2021 where people get demonized of being something that they're actually not. They get declared domestic terrorists. They get declared all of these crazy titles that they're threats and that they're this and that they're that and that the public should keep an eye on them because, hey, they might do something that, might hurt people. It's sad that we live in this era. It's sad that we have to kind of be afraid, in a sense, to express our First Amendment right to peacefully protest the federal government and express our grievances with them. But that just kind of lets you know. Why are you afraid? You afraid of the FBI? You afraid of the NSA listening in on your phone calls? Are you afraid of the federal government coming after you and taking a look at your iMessage chats and what you're talking about if you're against the current leadership in the United States of America? These things happen. It's nothing new. But the fact that you're afraid and the fact that you're actually worrying about these things and these things are proven to be true, where in the United States of America, where people are afraid to show up to a protest in fears that it might actually end up becoming a Fed op, like Patriot Front, we've seen in Washington, D.C., we've and everybody knows that's a sore thumb. This is a testament to let you know just exactly where we are as a nation. When the people start to have these concerns and when the people start to fear to express their First Amendment right to peacefully assemble and express their grievances to the current leadership, when people are actually scared to do this, whether it's on or offline, it kind of lets you know that the leadership in place just might be a little tyrannical, just might be a little authoritarian. Maybe the leadership in place that's causing this fear in people are actually the totalitarians that are posing a threat to the people. This is what America was established on to stand against. This is what America was founded on to literally oppose tyranny within itself, authoritarianism within itself. But the fact that you have Americans that are afraid to show up to a protest, whether it's a trucker, you name it, in DC, wherever. The fact that people are afraid that it might be a Fed op shows you just exactly where we are. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Drew Hernandez, and you are on the front lines, but TPUSA Live starts right now.
Thanks a lot, Drew. Hey, everyone. Once again, welcome to TPUSA HQ in Phoenix, Arizona. Here's what we're covering today. First, gas hits an all-time average high and more in the daily briefing. Next, we get to the bottom of the question, is Vladimir Putin a sociopath? Then Kanye throws the most recent punch in the rivalry between him and Pete Davidson. And finally, we'll introduce you to the newest members of the Professor Watch List, followed by an all-time clumsy moment on The View in one last thing. All right, let's do this. TPUSA Live from HQ starts right now.
Authentic, unfiltered, grassroots content and conversation every weekday. Live from Phoenix, Arizona at the Turning Point USA headquarters, this is TPUSA Live.
Once again, welcome back to TPUSA HQ. We're in Phoenix, Arizona. It's starting to get a little hot around here. I don't like it.
You look different today, and I can't figure out what it is.
He did shave a couple days ago.
The facial hair. Have you
Oh,
not
the
seen
facial
it yet?
hair. No. You changed your beard off?
I did.
Oh my God.
Hey, don't worry, it's coming back.
Oh, it is?
Yeah,
Okay.
don't. It just takes a little bit.
If
I
it
don't know.
didn't, it's okay. You don't.
Well, actually, what do you think I should do?
Well, it gets so hot here. Does beard make a guy hotter in the summer or no?
Well, are you talking about like hotter? Or?
Define hot.
Oh, I forgot this
In
is
what
Dad Joke
context?
Central over here.
Well, I want to look hot always. So
Of course.
Yeah. ladies,
You look
just-
good either way. You look
Wow.
good either way.
That's very sweet. Alex Clark is here.
Yeah.
The sweetheart is here. We also got Alison Furno. Welcome.
Thank
It's always
you.
good having you.
Yeah, it's a fun time.
Also, I don't think we've gotten to the bottom of it. When did you start dyeing your hair red? Like,
I
when
just
did that
got
start?
asked this in the back room. It was like 3 or 4 years ago. It's been a
Wow.
while. Yeah.
What
It's
made-
her signature thing.
It
What'd
is.
What made you do it?
I used to be so quiet in high school and in college, and I finally got to a point where I was like, I'm tired of this, like having all this fire on the inside, and I don't know how to bring it out. And I was like, I want to be the person that knows how to stand up and say what I'm thinking when it's like, you know, like those moments, like whether it's like a Mean Girls moment or like you just have a moment where you're like, I know exactly what to say right now. Oh my gosh, Legally Blonde. It's like those
Yes.
moments.
Yeah.
It's like those moments. And so I dyed my hair. I was like, this is how I feel on the inside. We're going to do it on the outside.
I love that.
I love it. Now you know. And then this guy, you're getting a lot of camera time today. Drew Hernandez, how you doing?
Yeah, I teleported from one set to the
That
other.
was fast.
I have,
That
you
was
know,
nuts.
powers, just so you guys know.
Wow.
It's fun.
Jeez, I wouldn't mind some of those powers. Yeah, let me know how I can get some of those. But let's get you up to date with about what's going on in the crazy world, stuff you might not have heard on Drew's show or anywhere else. Gas hit an all-time high on average. So the average cost of gas is $5 in California right now.
insane.
I'm so glad I'm out of there. What do you think, Drew?
It's not a surprise. I mean, it just gets exhausting, you know, like we've been warning people about this leadership that this is where we would go because this is where we were before President Trump. And we were trying to, you know, ring the bell and tell people that this is where we're going to go back to. And at this point, it's just kind of like, I hate to say I told you so, but I am kind of sick of telling you I told you so because it's like, I just want to believe that the American people are just kind of like learning by now, but unfortunately, they're not.
Right. And it's going to get worse, isn't it? With
Yeah.
the war and everything happening.
But doesn't everybody just feel better on the inside that there's no mean tweets going on?
Of
Oh.
I
course.
mean,
Oh.
we're so relaxed.
My
We can
anxiety has
sleep well
gone
at night.
down. Now that President Trump is off of Twitter and he's not tweeting, my anxiety has gone down, but I love paying more than $5 a gallon at the pump.
Love
No
it.
anxiety at all. You know.
No anxiety.
And it's not shocking that it's in the Silicon Valley in San Francisco. So that's where it is. That's where I moved from. And I remember, like, I died a little bit inside every single time I filled up my tank. When I was there, it's crazy. You see just the wealth gap disparity in Silicon Valley. It's absolutely insane. And then, I know we talked about it before, it's not like everybody can just get up and leave whenever the heck they want. Obviously, we'd
Right.
love to be able to tell people that are not working in tech, not an executive. I mean, even some of those people, like, more than half of their paycheck is just going to taxes to
Yeah.
fix roads that aren't getting fixed ever.
Right.
You have the worst traffic. You have probably some of the worst people in America right there. Some of the most selfish people, to be completely honest. There
Yeah.
are some great people there. Yes, shout out to my good buddies still there. But it's I mean, it's not shocking to me. It's happening in San Francisco. Another piece of news is obviously we've been covering a lot of what's going on with Russia and Ukraine, and Ukraine President Zelensky said, I want to meet Putin face to face. So there's reports that he's been stuck in a bunker for a little while. He's making sure he's informing people about what's going on and what he thinks through social media. And he said he wants to meet face to face and he doesn't bite.
Here's what I want to happen. I want cameras on this meeting, which hopefully there will be, and I want there to just be a thumb war. And that's how we determine what's going to happen in this war. And then that's it. It's done. Everything can go back to normal. Everybody gets to go home and, like, you know, peace on earth. That would be more like probably a leftist way of thinking, I guess.
That
leave it up to chance.
That or remember we were talking about the other day, like the Russian slapping champions.
Oh yeah.
I would love to see that.
You get your best slap champion. We'll get our best slap champion. Whoever is up last is, I don't know what they get.
Jeez.
I'm down to watch that. I'd pay to watch that.
But he also said, sit down with me to negotiate, not just at 30 meters. Because you guys see the photo of Vladimir Putin? He's sitting at the end of that very long table.
Oh my god.
So he's basically just throwing a little subtle jab right there at him. So also too, there's a lot of people that are taking Russian products off their shelves. Like they're really making a huge difference. We're like, wait, we're pouring out all our Russian vodka, and it's really showing them. It's really not doing anything at all.
Yeah.
It is the biggest virtue signal, waste of time, just privileged thing I think I've ever seen. It is the equivalent, the dumping Russian vodka down the sink and, also telling, Apple saying that they're not going to sell products there in Russia anymore. All of that is the equivalent of just posting your black square. It does nothing. It does nothing, but you can post about, doing it. Like Apple can post that, well, we're not selling our products in Russia anymore. Like, look how good we're doing. All of that is the equivalent of virtue signaling with just, a post.
Yeah, Apple's like, oh, we're not going to sell our products in Russia anymore, but we're going to keep our, our factories in China that are like utilizing poor people and paying them nothing to continue to make our products like this. Like you said, Alex, it's perfectly put.
No, they
They're
think
virtue signalers. It's
stupid.
a joke.
Yeah.
That's all it is. They think you're dumb. They think you're forgetting about all this stuff. Like even International Olympic Committee telling people, don't have your championships in Russia. Don't associate with them as well. You just had the Olympics in Beijing.
Yeah.
And that was the first place ever to have the summer and winter games at the same place.
But
while there's genocide going on.
I mean, that's the thing. That's what happens in politics is people bet on the ignorant voter, and they win every time because people do not want to know anything outside of their own lives and their own selfish little circle of what they want to do and how they feel, and that's part of why the whole self-love movement drives me crazy. I mean, of course I want people to love themselves. Of course I want people to, take care of themselves. But when it gets to this point where you're so self-centered and then you don't know what's happening in the world and all you have to do is virtue signal like, hey, we're still a good company. Hey, we did this one little thing, right? And nobody notices all of the stuff that's happening outside it. It's like, it's insane to me.
They're probably the same people that say, thoughts and prayers don't do anything at all. But watch me pour out all this Russian vodka.
They are the same people.
They are.
Yeah.
They are.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. After the break, we got to figure out the question, is Vladimir Putin a sociopath? Hopefully that keeps you on the edge of your seat. See you in a minute.
Good Ranchers, straight from the American farm. 100% American meat, 100% of the time. Delivered straight to your door.
Wait, are those my Good Rancher steaks? I'll be taking these.
Claim your 10 free bistro fillets with your next order with promo code TPUSA Live at goodranchers.com.
Welcome back to TPUSA Live. We got TPUSA contributor Drew Hernandez, TPUSA contributor Alex Clark, TPUSA Ambassador Alison Furno. I'm Jon Root. So we got to figure out the question, is Vladimir Putin a sociopath? And I know we were putting this show together and a few people had ideas. Obviously, you're covering everything that's going on there. Jack Posobiec does a great job. But there was a viral video from Shane Dawson. He's a big-time YouTuber, and he was saying, is Jake Paul a sociopath? And they just went to the full extreme. So it's like, well, maybe we do that a little bit. Is Vladimir Putin just a crazy person? Is he an evil genius? Is he someone that's just an elitist that wants to just get away with everything and he thinks he can? What's the answer to that? What do you think?
I think anybody that's running a country is going to be smart. You know what I mean? They've got to pull strings, whether they get there fairly or not. It does take skills to get in that position. I mean, you can't just be absolutely not there mentally. So I think it's not that saying that you think that Vladimir Putin is smart doesn't mean that you think he's a good person. That, you know what I mean?
Right.
Somebody can be smart, they can be a genius and be a terrible, awful, dictator or human being. So I don't think that he's crazy. I think he's strategic, and that's scary.
Yeah, I think that's all it comes down to is just this strategy aspect. Everybody likes to think, people that we think are evil are just dumb. I mean, there's some dumb ideas, but also there's a lot of people on the left side of the aisle here in America that are very good at marketing. They're smart marketers, like people like Congresswoman AOC. She's very smart at marketing. She does a very good job with social media and knowing how to spin stories. And there's got to be an aspect of that where you can kind of give some credit, but it is dumb ideas.
Yeah.
But the way she goes about throwing it out there is pretty smart.
I think President Trump is right. I'm not shilling for Trump. I just think he's right when he says that, Vladimir Putin wouldn't have done this if, he was in office, because Vladimir Putin knows there was a sheriff in town. And the reason why that was kind of put on hold for 4 years was because President Trump was in office, and now you're starting to see that these world powers are moving on the world stage. And I think Vladimir Putin, like Alex said, is intelligent. He's very smart, very high IQ. He's running circles around this current administration.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Everybody knows it.
I mean, for people to say, the reason that Putin is doing all of this is because he's not all there. I mean, how can you possibly say that and then also be a fan of our current president in the United States? I mean,
right.
I don't understand that correlation. And I also agree with Drew, and I think that, this invasion has happened now in 2022 because we don't have President Trump in office anymore. This would have happened in 2016 had Hillary won, I think.
I know Jack Posobiec was saying that too.
It was delayed. It was delayed because President Trump was in office. Now, with, as big of a joke as President Biden is in office, that's why Putin made his move. This isn't something that he just decided on a whim a week ago. This has been, something that has been in the works.
Yeah, definitely. And John, you made a really good point of a lot of people just think the other side's stupid. We really need to pay attention and think about why they're doing what they're doing, because how are you supposed to win a game unless you know how to play the game, right? And so there's that piece of it where even just in general conversations, people are I disagree with you, you're stupid, you don't get it, you hate the world. It's no, most people are trying to help, even if they have the wrong belief of, human nature or the laws that we have in the world, all these different things. Even if they have the wrong view, they're trying to help. So if you can have more meaningful conversations and actually possibly change people's minds, that's how you're going to start winning culture wars, not just being we disagree and let me make a news piece about it, Right. So I think that's a huge piece of trying to win this game is know how the game is played and play the game. You know what I mean?
I just think the biggest part here that is super sus to me is why, and I think this is propaganda. Why is it that you're seeing all of these headlines? Why are we questioning the mental stability of Vladimir Putin and not President Biden when there's more visual evidence? Literally, you watch President Biden to prove that we should be questioning him
right.
in our country before we worry about another country. To me, that's intentional. They're intentionally putting this out there. They don't want you to see them. They want all eyes off of this failed leadership in our country. They want to point you to a villain and not what's actually happening here in America. To me, it's just, call me a conspiracy theorist, but it literally is perfect to get people's eyes off of the destruction of this country, the invasion at our southern border, the inflation rising in this country, what's taking place here domestically with
rising gas prices, it just distracts you completely.
It's an easy way to dumb it down, though. That's where they think people can relate to that somehow, where it's like, that's just evil and dumb. It's like, okay, well, that just makes sense. Where like, you're not going to get into the nitty gritty of it, where it's like, that's just stupid. And then you just move forward. And that's what we try to do in so many aspects of society, where you see this administration would say, yeah, it's just COVID. You know, the economy is still struggling right now. It's just because you guys understand. You went through some of this stuff. Inflation is just going to take a little bit of time just because of COVID. And they want people to just be like, okay, you know, that kind of makes sense.
Well, you know, when people were shocked or confused, I think that are kind of like in the mushy middle as far as voters go. When they were shocked and confused that during the State of the Union, President Biden spent, you know, arguably a good portion of the State of the Union address talking about the Ukraine stuff. Well, that's what Drew was talking about. It's the perfect distraction, because normally you would need as much time as possible when you think back to the Trump administration to talk about your accomplishments. Well, there's not a lot we can brag about. We really we need a time filler. Oh, what can we do? Let's talk about all the horrible things that are happening, you know, in this European country. Like, that's what we should do. And so it was the perfect distraction.
It was the state of Ukraine.
It was the state of Ukraine. And so that was why, though, is not only does it give the opportunity for the Biden administration to look so good to people, to, you know, those low information voters, like, oh, wow, you know, they don't know anything about that, you know, anything about really what's going on. So they just see him, you know, looking like he's caring about these people that are going through something hard. And then, you know, before they know it, it's over, and we didn't really talk about how he didn't get done anything. I mean, which is why, not to get into the State of the Union, but he talked more about what he wants to do, not anything that he actually has done in the last year.
Yeah, because it sounds good. You know, a lot of that, like, buy American, let's support our troops, like we were talking about.
Sounds kind of familiar, like a guy I know.
Right, yeah exactly.
Exactly. That's why, like we were saying it yesterday, it's all about just like, you can talk the talk, but you got to walk the walk. And then that's where I think they do a good job with that aspect of marketing, because you see someone like, well, he hasn't gone toe-to-toe with Vladimir Putin, who they try to say, Vladimir Putin, like, he had a wife, and then he had this mistress who had ties to this Russian bank, and then they were able to use their elitist status to, you know, get some of these houses, like we can show up on the screen right now, too. And it's just like, look at all this manipulation. Like, there's that resort that Putin has. He also has this other piece of property that he was able to do on the backs of Russians, where it's like, you know, you got places being overrun with COVID, blah, blah, blah. They didn't do a good job, and he's still making all this money. And then President Biden, look at him. Like, he still cares about America. He wants to fund the police now. He's got COVID under control. Like, vaccines are done.
I didn't know that a symptom of COVID was that everyone was going to get amnesia and forget everything that the left has said, you know, in the last several years leading up to the Biden presidency. I guess they thought that everybody's brains were just wiped out and that we don't remember that the left was shilling for defunding the police. Still are, by the way. And also, you know, shipping all of our manufacturing jobs overseas, everything, the complete opposite of what's been being said.
I think they do. I think they really do.
They just don't care?
Yeah, I think because like, they really do believe people are this dumb.
They do.
That are just not going to pay attention. That have the attention span of like a fly. Like, that you're just not going to remember any of this stuff.
Like that, but
like a raccoon.
I don't know what he's saying, but I'm ready to clap again. I'm ready to clap.
But it's true. They really expect you to be this dumb to not remember anything. At least their base, Alex.
Right.
You know, like the base people, we pay attention. People that are actually like informed, that know what's going on. But I really do believe that the far left depends on people to be stupid.
Yeah.
And to question nothing and to just believe everything that comes out of their lying mouths.
Well, that's what they're getting from the whole polarizing situation, right? If you polarize people, now you have a whole group of people who are like, I don't want to talk about politics at all. Like, I don't really care. Whoever makes me feel good, whoever makes me feel a little more safe and better. And that's literally the commercial they see, you know, at the Super Bowl or the one or two times. But the majority of people literally don't want to know, because they don't want to get into it. And it's either I'm in politics or I'm not. And if I'm not, just tell me who to vote for, and I'm going to go by what my best friend says, you know? And that's a really bad place to be, but they know that that's the place that so many people are, so they play on it.
And then that's just people's attention span now, too. Just think about, I know we've had conversations around the office about now Instagram Reels are just 1 minute, and there's times people are just like, when does this video end? 1 minute at a time.
Yeah, I get that.
That's it. And I think that's why, like, people just, they want to forget. I think there's a lot of people that just don't want to go to war. They don't want to go to battle when it comes to the aspect of politics.
I keep waiting to see where all these Antifa members are going to enlist and fight the fascists, right? That's what they've been talking about, that they want to fight the fascists. But I haven't seen anyone say, I want to go fight Russia. You know?
I am all for deploying all of Antifa in the United States and all of Black Lives Matter in the United States to the front lines of Ukraine to go fight the fascists if they love them so much, but they won't. Why? Because they're a bunch of LARPers.
True. Yeah.
When Jack Posobiec said the other day that these people, what he said, just like Gen Z LARPers, I think that was his quote or something. Like, that was so spot on. But I think the answer to this is Vladimir Putin, someone who obviously is just an elitist over there, and he's manipulative, but he really is a smart guy. Yeah. But we had a smarter guy in the office for 4 years and a stronger guy in the White House for 4 years. And then now we got the opposite. So give credit where credit's due, and talk about someone like President Biden. He's not going to get it done. He's going to send out some great tweets that sound good, like he's going to unify us, but it ain't going to happen. But hey, coming up next, we got Kanye West. Him and Pete Davidson's rivalry has been incredible. We got to get Alex Clark's take on that. But before, YWLS is coming up, Young Women's Leadership Summit. Drew and I will probably be there. It'll be great, even though it's a Young Women's Leadership Summit.
I've already promoted it, Alex. I told you the other
day. It's going to be fantastic.
True, he did. He's very nice.
Let's check this out. We'll be back in a second. Boom, there you have it. YWLS is coming up. You got to register, and you've done a great job promoting this, Alex.
Thank
and
you.
Even last year, it was so fun. It was this whole Barbie theme, like everything was pink. I jumped in that Barbie box. I felt like Ken.
And see, now that based on that commercial, though, see the promo showed, which is Allison, it'll be right up Allison's alley, because now this year, total opposite. As you can see, the vibe, we can't reveal too much, but the vibe is total opposite.
Can you
from
give
last
us a little,
year.
little sneak peek other than what we just saw?
I mean, the sneak peek is.
What's the tea?
The sneak peek is kind of the opposite. So if you think like Barbie and pink and everything, what's this year going to be? What's the opposite
Skater Boy,
of that?
Avril Lavigne action?
Maybe.
Ooh,
Maybe we're on our Skater Boy. Who knows?
Got some lace-up boots. I saw those boots. I was like, okay.
You can use promo code Jon if you would like, Jon, but you should probably use promo code Alex.
Politics.
Politics?
Yes, for 50% off your tickets.
If you don't want to just spend too much time typing, JON is way faster. But use Politics, please do that. It's going to be an amazing event. I know last year was the biggest it's ever been, right?
The biggest it's ever been, so we're anticipating this year to be even bigger and then to sell out even faster.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
It's
exciting.
going to be a lot of fun. And I think that's what we need in this world, too, is like strong, young, conservative women like you that are giving everybody the tools and resources to go fight back against the crazy woke left.
It's such a blast. And what was the first year you came to YWLS?
It was, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever, because it wasn't just powerful women, it was powerful, like, strong women. I was like, you know what you're talking about. You're not afraid to stand up to people. And it honestly changed so much of my perspective of, you know, because we don't always see people like that growing up. We don't always have those, you know, whether it's mentors or whatever. All my mentors in college were terrible. I mean, they were the most insecure. You know, it's like you have those people that are in power but have no actual authority in who they are and who they're supposed to be. So it's really cool to see strong women up on the stage talking, you know, and just confident in what they believe and confident in who they are. So I'm super excited about it.
Next up, Kanye West. What the heck's going on? Because
Kanye
this
West.
rivalry is like, first off, Pete Davidson looks like it's obviously straight out of Beetlejuice.
He always looks sick.
It looks like he just like rose from the dead. And then he rose from the dead, and then he got Kim K. And then now there's a lot of back and forth with Kanye. And a lot of people just want to know what's happening with Kanye, because he had a gospel album and seemed like he was getting his faith on track a little bit. And then now there's a divorce here, and he's just basically saying he wants to see Pete Davidson 6 feet under. What's going on?
We'll discuss it.
I want to discuss it right now.
Oh, right now?
Right now.
Okay, so here's the thing. I don't understand why we're in a slump in pop culture news this week. There's not a lot happening. Everything's about the war. So they're making mountains out of molehills. I do not think that Kanye making a music video or whatever, portraying Pete Davidson 6 feet under is that big of a red flag. This is
There it is.
hip hop. This is hip hop. Okay,
Right.
this is like. We've gotten so freaking soft now. We're so used to people just like writing mean comments on Instagram. We think that that's so hard. Think about Eminem back in the day, the lyrics that he had talking about his ex-wife Kim and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It was way more brutal than this. This is child's play.
And Eminem's take on homosexuals. Wait till Gen Z finds out about that.
Oh, I know. And now he's like the king, woke guy who came out all against Trump. Because, that's what they all do. They come out against conservatives and stuff because it hides any of their own transgressions. It's all a farce. But anyway, I really do not think that that's that bad.
Yeah, and I think it would be kind of embarrassing for him too, like if he really does have these Christian values and he's like, I don't believe in divorce, and then he has to get a divorce, and he's, you know what I mean?
Right. I mean, I'm not saying like he's being loving towards him or anything. I just think like he's trying to sell music. He's trying to stay in the news.
I did see some headlines, and I thought I agree with Alex. I thought it was pretty ridiculous. Like I saw on Twitter, it was trending like, oh, Kanye puts out this horrific video against Pete Davidson, beheading Pete Davidson. I'm like, yeah, but Snoop Dogg could get away with like
assassinating the president,
literally assassinating a sitting U.S. president. I mean, but it is hip hop culture.
Yeah.
I don't feel sorry for Pete Davidson because, in my opinion, he's the reason why Mac Miller killed himself. And nobody wants to talk about that, but I just don't want to sit here and like make this guy to be like this little victim when he himself didn't say a word when that happened, by the way. Never made a comment, never said he was sorry, just continued on with Ariana Grande as if nothing ever happened. But a dude literally took his life because Pete Davidson decided to get involved in their relationship. And now he's doing it again with Kim and Kanye, but now there's kids involved.
Right.
And I think that's why Kanye's getting really aggressive.
Right.
Because you don't touch the kids.
But also, I will say this, in defense of Pete, is I mean, Kim now is considered legally single by the courts as of this week. There also has to be a point where Kanye accepts that she wanted this divorce. Maybe he didn't want it, but they are divorced, and so she's gonna live in, she's gonna move on with her life.
And there's a difference, I think, between hip hop culture, where it's like we've seen way worse from other people, no doubt.
Please.
But when this gets into this boat of, is Kanye a conservative? He seemed to be on the right side of a lot of different ideals and arguments, and he actually started building a relationship with President Trump a little bit, and then there's him like sharing a few text messages with Pete. Like he's been airing all his grievances out. But it comes down to, should we hold him to a different standard because he's a part of the conservative movement?
No.
He's still an artist, you know what I mean? He's still going to express himself. Isn't that what artists do? They express themselves in all these different ways. So it's just him kind of going through that process.
I also wouldn't consider Kanye a conservative either. I think he is a free thinker. I don't think he's woke. I wouldn't say that he is a truly like right-wing conservative. There's a lot of views that he holds that I would say are not conservative. I mean, so...
Yeah, because that's, I think, what it comes down to is just like when you have that argument, like, sure, you're going to see that in hip hop culture, but like if anybody else was going to be kind of on the right side of the aisle in a lot of different situations, is it going to be okay if they show their artistic talents with like murder, not liking somebody, and now I just want to bury this person?
Then it just becomes a free speech issue, right?
I think so.
And this was also something, wasn't it recently? There was a whole free speech ruling about can hip hop artists be held legally, for things they rap in lyrics, because a lot of them will talk about things like shooting places up and all these violent lyrics, but it's metaphors, or it's just part of the art form. They're not actually going to do that or actually want to do it. They're just rapping about it, but then they want to know if they could use their lyrics against them in court.
So when people like playing devil's advocate here, not saying that I agree with either side here, but you got Kathy Griffin that held a severed head, President Trump, which I thought was disgusting. And then you now have Kanye West here with Pete Davidson, who's now with his ex-wife, and I want him 6 feet under, and here's a music video of him dead and basically a severed head.
I would say, okay, I don't love either. I'm not watching this Pete Davidson, Kanye clip thinking like, wow, that's so amazing. I feel so inspired. Like, I don't think that, but I would say that personally, I hold someone like Kanye West differently, to a different standard than Kathy Griffin. Because when I think of a hip hop artist and rapper, I'm going to hold them like they're more hardcore standard. They're going to do more hardcore, like, things like that. Kathy Griffin is supposed to be a comedian.
Right.
Nothing about like holding a severed head of a president is funny to me. I mean, so I'm going to hold her to a different standard. Like, this isn't even funny. This is just grotesque. I would expect, I guess I don't like it either, but I would just be, I wouldn't be as shocked of something like that coming from Kanye versus someone like Kathy Griffin. Does that make sense at least?
Yeah, definitely.
No, I agree. The whole comedy thing, I mean, yeah, it's like, is that even supposed to be, it's not even, I don't know, it's not even funny. So I agree. I totally get it.
I think Kanye is going to be Kanye. And if you listen to his album, Jesus is King, he's like very aggressive about defending his family. Mm-hmm. And when I see stuff like this, you know, I can't speak for the guy, but I just do wonder if he's always been someone that'll just tell you like what he feels. Like it may not be true, it may not be 100% accurate, but with Kanye, you're just going to get what he really feels at the moment. I mean, I've been a fan of him since like the very college dropout. Like, and I've been listening.
Have you watched the documentary?
The documentary is amazing.
I watched the first episode.
It's amazing.
I just watched the second episode the other day.
Yeah, the finale's great. Yeah. But I just think this has a lot to do with his family, because you listen to Jesus is King, and he's just like very aggressive, defending his children, doesn't want the media coming after them. We saw what happened with the TikTok thing. So I can't speak for the guy. I just know when it comes to family, you don't cross that line.
Right.
Where do you think this ends? Is it just keep going on till
He's gonna
the end
do
of
this
time?
I'm just going to tell you right now, Kanye West is going to make this same kind of these same kind of attacks on any guy that ends up dating and or maybe marrying Kim Kardashian one day.
Yeah.
It will happen forever. He will always be in love with Kim. No other woman on earth is ever going to hold a candle in his eyes to Kim, and he's always going to be protective of his family unit and people that are involved with his kids. We're going to get all of these blasts forever till the end of the time. I'm just telling you.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm so invested in this now. So I've been listening to your stuff and reading your tweets a little bit more, like recently with this, because I'm like, I want to know what's going on. I've been trying to play catch up for so much, but it's been great. We're going to keep you updated. Politics will keep you updated. It's going to be amazing. But coming up after the break, we're going to introduce you to the newest members of the Professor Watchlist, and you're going to love this because they love Antifa.
Oh, here we go.
Huge supporters. We'll be back right after the break.
All right, guys, you have signed up, right? You've joined freedomsquare.com. If you haven't, why not? This should have happened a decade ago. How did somebody not think of this earlier? If you're a business owner, we have a business directory to promote your business to patriots across the nation. So if you want to buy American, if you want to sell American, we have a business directory. Whatever it is, go now.
Join us in the fight for freedom. Welcome to Freedom Square.
Welcome back to TPUSA Live. We're here at TPUSA HQ in Phoenix, Arizona. We got Drew Hernandez, Alex Clark, Alison Furno. I'm Jon Root. Time to introduce you to the newest members of the Professor Watchlist. I say it all the time. They made it because they're the worst. We're going to start with this. Dr. Alexander Reed Ross. We're going to show you a photo of Dr. Ross here. It's an instructor in the geography department. Dr. Ross.
This guy's a radical?
This guy is a radical.
He looks like a teddy bear. I mean,
I could see
Oh,
it.
just you wait, Alex Clark.
What's his
I
story,
love a plot
John?
twist.
You're gonna love this. So, he's a huge supporter of Antifa.
Oh, of course.
What?
As a journalist, he regularly publishes favorable articles about this far left militant group that you just attack every day. And you've been on the inside, showcasing what's actually going on there, and he's someone that thinks this is good for society. People like Antifa, get this. He wrote a book titled Against the Fascist Creep in Defense of Antifa and Their Confrontational Tactics. And then get this, I'll get your response out of it. While speaking at the Orange County Anarchist Book Fair, what a book fair, huh? It's really changed since we were going to book fairs as kids. This was in 2017. When he talked about his book, he stated that the militant ways are needed to keep conservatives in check, comparing both the murderous Ku Klux Klan to conservatives nowadays. Check out this video and then we'll get your response.
It's also a question of fascists insinuating within the right and the way that the right uses fascism in order to further what it wants.
It's just funny because all you hear from the far left, Antifa and BLM, is like, the right is fascist, the right are Nazis, they're coming after all of us, fascism is everywhere, they're gonna get all of us, they're gonna find you in your closet if you're trying to hide. I can't find it anywhere. Antifa are the fascists. They're the ones that silence political dissident. They're the ones that silence political opposition. Listen,
And what I want people to understand, especially parents, is Antifa isn't only these people in all black, wearing black bloc. They're in the education system. They're in the justice system. They're in Hollywood. They're in the mainstream media. They pose as journalists. Antifa is in all of these avenues and channels of society, and this is how they indoctrinate the masses. This is how they indoctrinate your kids. Because they're sitting there telling people that the right wing are the fascists when it's them. Because if anyone showed up in that conference that identified as the opposite of them and was like, hey, you know what? I disagree with you. You know what happened to that person? Immediately shut down. Probably attacked outside
yesterday,
off camera.
did you guys see that viral video in Texas of there was
chanting?
Yes, there were students that were trying to have a conference talking about this transgender stuff in Texas or whatever, and the whole room was filled with Antifa, and they were all yelling the entire time, making noises, screaming, you know, pooping their pants, whatever Antifa does so that the speakers couldn't speak. They didn't even allow them to share their ideas.
They were chanting effing fascists.
Right.
And they just kept going.
Yeah,
just trying
F you
to
fascists. Yeah, that's what they were chanting.
Yeah, and then this shouldn't surprise you. This is happening at Portland State, Allison.
Oh my gosh, not at all.
Were you in it?
No, I've been there a good amount, but
okay.
I mean, it's crazy to me how the people try to stop conversation. It's like, if you really believe in what you're saying, you should be able to defend it, right? And it's like, when it's a lie, that's when all you can do is repeat it over and over and hope that enough people, you know, it's marketing, right? We were talking about marketing earlier. It's the same exact thing. Like, all you have to do is make sure that enough people hear it over and over, and they start to believe the lie because it's in their head more often. And these people who are so passive and just go with whatever the heck comes their way, they're like, oh, well, it must be this because that's what I've heard on the news the most. And it's just, it drives me crazy that people don't look more into this stuff. But I mean, people just have to pay attention. They have to wake up.
And then, are you familiar with Rose City Antifa up there in Portland? So this is someone too, like, he's an instructor at Portland State, and he's basically teaming up with Rose City Antifa. And he's also one of those crazy climate alarmists as well. It says we need to do anything we can to save Mother Earth. He's a part of a group. He writes for this environmental magazine, Earth First. It's been around since 1980. So he says there needs to be some militant response to what's going on with the climate, and also Rose City Antifa.
We're going to deploy troops to go attack the sky.
But yeah, but what does that mean, a militant response to combat climate change? Like, does that mean like forcing people at gunpoint to recycle? I don't understand. I genuinely don't understand.
So what he's
do.
trying to do is, like, they're trying to sabotage people that work on pipelines, and then obviously that's why this whole, like, Keystone Pipeline, when that got shut down, there were so many people on the, like, crazy climate alarmist side that were just like, this is an amazing thing. But they just don't understand the economic impact. They don't understand the jobs that were lost. And they don't understand now that we have Russia invading Ukraine and how much dependence we have on foreign oil. But these people are thinking, they're praising this. They're like, this is a great thing. They're going to go and try to sabotage, like, lumber mills and things like that. That they just clearly don't understand. They see a tree chopped down, and then all of a sudden they think it's just, we have to take these people out.
The tree chopped down.
It's like what we were talking about earlier, is like, you know, sometimes we could sit here and like laugh at them and make jokes, and we can because they're LARPers and they're dumb, but they're called domestic terrorists for a reason. They're very organized. They know what they're doing. They're well funded, and they know exactly what they want to do. They know what their end game is. They're political operatives that infiltrate all of these channels in society, and they're successful. And it just blows my mind how people just don't want to acknowledge it yet.
And then that's why this whole aspect of marketing, we talk about it all the time. They want people to think this is good. And that goes along with this postmodern destructionist movement, deconstructionist movement, that you need to tear everything down. We need to team up with these militant groups that are, you know, it might look fiery right now, but it's mostly peaceful. But what I don't get is, obviously the left constantly contradicts themselves. Remember when President Biden basically said Antifa was an idea? Just like it's just something in your mind. There's just a few people that dress up similar and meet together. Like, for some reason they meet at the same time, and it just happens to work out. And then you have professors that are teaming up with these groups that were once an idea, and it seems like they're the physical group that's really happening, really tearing people down and trying to tear down the structure that made this country incredible.
In Antifa's mind, they translate the word group or organization as idea. So anytime you talk to these LARPers or kids, they'll say that to you. They'll say, oh, we're not an organization. We don't have a centralized leader because we're opposed to fascism. One leader.
So that's why they'll come out and they'll tell you this stuff is like, oh, we are an idea. We mobilize, but we're just an idea. Like they do this in everything. They change the definition of words.
Yeah.
Their ideas. It goes down the list, and Antifa does the same thing. So that's why when you have these conversations, that's why that goes all the way up to President Joe Biden saying things like that. That's why Jerry Nadler will come out and say, oh, they're just a myth. Because it comes from them claiming what they are, and then it goes all the way up to the top, and then it goes out to the masses. Right. It's crazy. It is a problem. It's a huge problem.
It's a huge problem. Not only are they burning stuff down, there's actually just physical force. There's like cyber warfare that's going on too. And then what they're going to try to do is just silence voices that are calling them out. They're trying to silence you, Andy No, and anybody else that's actually doing some real journalism.
Most of them are also freaking child rapists and molesters and stuff. I mean, every day I see another person is a sex offender, a registered sex offender for endangerment or abuse of a child. I'm like, what is this? It's very weird.
Yeah, and then another person that is empathetic and supportive of Antifa is this other member of the Professor Watch List is Megan Squire, Dr. Megan Squire, Professor of Computer Science at Elon University in North Carolina. There's Professor Squire. So according to her university biography, Professor Squire primarily researches the application of data techniques to understand niche and extremist online communities, particularly radical right-wing groups on social media. And those listed on her profile when it comes to this biography and numerous media outlets that she tries to shut down. She talks about the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times. She's a senior fellow of data analytics at the Southern Poverty Law Center, head of technical research unit at the Center of Analysis of the Radical Right. Like they have these groups and she's a fellow for it. And she wants to tell you, you know, the best way forward is I'm the leader of all these groups. And what we're doing is, luckily, we're taking out these right-wing extremists. We're making sure that anybody that says something about Antifa, we're going to shut them down. We're going to silence them. Like, just, we have to get back to this idea that the President of the United States, whatever you thought about him, the leader of the free world, the most powerful man on earth, got deplatformed because they deemed him as, you know, immoral, extremist, someone that was inciting violence, but the Taliban's still on there. Vladimir Putin's still able to have a platform on Twitter. And people like this, that people are spending money to go to this school and support and donate to, is telling you that we need to put every ounce of effort into taking out these right-wing extremist groups.
Part of Antifa's strategy online, and I wish Andy was here to speak on this because he has to deal with this a lot, is they'll have those political operatives that are online. They have like these massive campaigns in all of their networks that are on Signal or these encrypted apps, and they'll have everyone mobilized to go report a specific account. Their journalist will come out and write a hit piece on you, a bunch of fake news, saying all these lies, taking your words out of context, and they'll have that published in one of their news publications. And then they'll send that to Twitter, and there's another operative in Twitter that says, oh, wow, this was published by a verified checked account that this right-winger is a propagandist and a liar. Get rid of his account. They all work together.
But I mean,
it's really good. They're really good at what they do because it's effective.
Yeah, and it's effective because hate and offense is such a powerful emotion, right? And it's like, think of how miserable it must be, though, to be so offended all the time. That must come with a lot of anxiety. It must come with a lot of like internal grief, where it's like, like we see it online all the time. Like these trolls, it's like, you literally came onto my page to tell me you don't like my hair. Like the amount of people who have been like, I disapprove. I'm like, I didn't ask you. Yep. Like you woke up this morning and you thought, let me see who I can just be offended by today, based on literally nothing. Like that's a sad life. And for that lady having all of those things that she's doing, you have time to do this? Like you have time to like put this much energy into something negative. But like I said, hate's a powerful emotion that it drives people. And that's the thing. On our side of having fun, laughing, we have freedom, we're chill. You know what I mean? Like I'm not passionate about hating anybody. Do whatever you want, right? So it's like, that's the difference, is you see these people are fueled by hate, but it makes them act, you know?
And also too, she's sharing her research with Antifa. So we have she wrote an article in Wired magazine. It was called Meet Antifa's Secret Weapon Against Right-Wing Extremism. She's obviously sympathetic to Antifa, and she's, a smart lady when it comes to researching and getting to the bottom of these things, and obviously making sure she's building up some new radicals at Elon University. She's sharing this information. Everybody wants to know, like, how is Antifa making such a impact negatively on these cities? And, you know, it's in little ways like the Portland government. They're getting to these people and they're scaring them into just empathy, or scaring them into saying, like, you know, it's kind of like mostly peaceful, it's not that bad, but we do need to figure out the police first before we figure out Antifa. And they're getting their priorities out of whack, I think, based out of fear.
Antifa is very similar to the cartels in the way that they do things. You take a look at Mexico. The cartels have corrupt police officers. The cartels have corrupt lawyers. The cartels have corrupt judges. They have corrupt people in the media. They do exactly what they want, and they use fear through intimidation to get what they want. And Antifa does the exact same thing, especially in the Mecca with Rose City Antifa in Portland. You see, that's why Portland is the way it is, John, because of those very reasons. People are like, how did we get to this place? How did these kids running around in black get this done? Because there's people on the inside that sympathize with them and do everything they want.
What do you tell people, though, to fight back against this? Like, what about kids that are just in this class here, and we talk about it all the time, like, you might just need to get this class done, and that's what worked out with your schedule, and that's what you need to do to graduate. Like, people might have jumped into Elon University or some other place, like Portland State, and said, like, I don't really agree with this, but I'm here, I got to finish my classes. How do you
Well, I tell kids on campus is, you know, engage, finish school, but look to the future, because we need to do what they do. They have the playbook. They infiltrate culture. They infiltrate Hollywood. They own the music industry. They own Disney. They own everything. They're in education. They're in politics. We have to engage the same way and infiltrate with our values the same way. Because a lot of young people want to be the next SoundCloud rapper. They want to be the next social media star. And that's fine. Speak your mind. But I want to see some more. We need some more lawyers. We need some more people that want to engage and be a judge someday. We need some more educators. Science is a whole other conversation. I mean, look at Dr. Fauci and how far they've gone.
Yeah.
We need more.
Mr. Science himself.
Yes. Engage in every single avenue with your values, because that's exactly what they're doing.
And then before we move on into one last thing and take a quick commercial break, I know some people were asking before the show. We're taking a little bit of a rewind here, talking about how you can make a difference on your campus. Obviously, check out ProfessorWatchlist.org. Learn a little bit more about Dr. Ross, Dr. Squire, and the rest of the crazy people instructing kids on campuses.
Yeah, look up and see if there's somebody at your school or your kid's school.
Exactly. And then if you're donating to these places, cut it off. That should be it, hearing stories like this. But there was news that came out that Anastasia was getting taken off of Disney Plus. And then sometimes people are trying to figure out, how do I combat what's going on my campus? How do we combat what's going on with Russia? I don't really agree. There's a lot of different reports coming out, but what was your response when that first came out and said Anastasia's off the platform?
Okay, so the movie, you know, about the Russian princess or whatever, Anastasia from the 90s, has been taken off of Disney Plus this week. Now, Disney says that it's a contractual problem. Like, there's something going on just with the contract, so they have to pause the movie being on the platform for a minute, and then, you know, it'll be back eventually or whatever. I just think that's very suspect timing with everything going on for them to take off that movie. So, you know, first of all, you have to decide for yourself if you're going to believe what Disney is saying or not. But again, I do not understand how a company can say, you know, if the reason that Disney decided to take Anastasia off the platform is to make some sort of point, virtue signaling point about Russia. Disney is the same movie that during the pandemic went to the exact city in China that has concentration camps for Uyghur Muslims and thanked the city in the credits for letting them film there and for the city being so welcoming, the government being so accommodating.
Mulan, right?
Yeah, live action Mulan, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So Disney, though, as a company, has been okay with that. They haven't said, you know, Jack, you know what, against China or about China. And so if Anastasia being removed from the platform, how do you explain that? How do you explain that? And so to me, it's huge leftist corporations like Apple, like Disney, who have not said peep about human rights violations in China. Now suddenly, Putin bad, which he is, but like freaking out about this Russia stuff and, like everything Ukraine does is good. And this is why it's making me very suspicious of everything that's going on. I don't know what to believe, but I know one thing is that they don't have a great track record when it comes to being fair and calling out true human rights violations. So why all of a sudden are we supposed to believe them now? I think I'm going to take a step back and see what happens and see what comes out, because something here is fishy.
Yeah, it's fishy because it happened March 1st too. And what's different about Disney Plus compared to like Hulu and Netflix, usually they're going to give you a few months to get ready for like this is going to be off the platform.
A warning.
But they don't give you warnings with Disney Plus. That's why I feel like this is extra fishy, because I mean it's getting people to talk, no doubt. I don't think it should have been on in the first place, because Rasputin is the most terrifying animated villain I have ever seen in my entire life. I had nightmares when I was a kid.
See, what's so funny,
Oh, man.
you can tell that I am such a true crime and like scary movie lover, horror lover. I love everything spooky. That Rasputin is one of my favorite Disney villains of all time. I loved that character because it was so freaky.
Oh, it's the worst. Have you guys seen that animated movie, Anastasia?
old school.
Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it.
Don't watch it.
Oh,
well, you can't because
so
it's not
good.
on Disney Plus
The
anymore.
music in that movie is so good. It's excellent.
I'm actually curious to see if they'll remove. You guys remember American Tail?
Yes. Fievel.
Fievel, little Russian mouse family.
I forgot that was Russian too.
Was immigrating to America.
Fievel goes west.
Right? There are no cats in America.
Yeah.
I wonder if they'll ban that movie.
We'll see, but all we know is there's so much virtue signaling going on. Like, obviously, thoughts and prayers for everyone in Ukraine. Obviously, we're hearing more reports out there that there's potentially like soldiers and civilians getting killed. It's hard to know like what's true right now, but we do know that they are under attack. We do know that for sure, and they're in our thoughts and prayers. But you saw the State of the Union. Everyone's holding these Ukrainian flags. They got the pins. They want you to think they really care about human rights. The International Olympic Committee wants you to think that too. Disney Plus. Once again, they think you're stupid. And I think some people kind of are. But no one that watches this show is dumb. But coming up next, we got one last thing. Check out this Socialism Sucks little plug. We'll see you in just a second. Welcome back to TPUSA Live. Drew Hernandez, Alex Clark, Alison Furno. I'm Jon Root. We got time for one last thing. We talk about The View a lot on this show, and you might as well just keep it rolling, right? It feels like there's news every single day. There's obviously something crazy being said, but there was a pretty clumsy moment. Joy Behar, she said, COVID's been tough for me. I haven't been able to go on my Italian vacation like I've wanted, and she's talking about potentially wearing a mask for the rest of your life. Joy, do whatever the heck you want, but maybe you should worry about your feet under you first. Check out this video.
Just stand. Let me tell you, these chairs are getting...
Down goes Joy.
I mean, look, that's really, I feel bad for her. It's super embarrassing. Selena Gomez tripped at the SAG Awards over the weekend. I felt super bad for her. That's like my worst nightmare happening to me. Every single time I go on stage at a Turning Point event, I always am scared that's going to happen. So,
Did she fall on stage, or was that red carpet, or what?
Selena?
Yeah.
It was on the red carpet.
Okay.
She fell. So she like tripped in her heels while she was taking pictures. So
Luckily,
and
it was
then she
kinda
went
like red
barefoot
carpet,
the rest.
right? Compared to like, oh hey, here's an award for you, and then she's like, boom.
Well, and Jennifer Lawrence, she tripped once. I can't remember what if that was the Oscars or what, but she was walking up the stairs to go to the stage to accept her award, and she fell too. So Selena went barefoot the whole thing. But I felt bad for Joy. It's funny. If she would have been seriously hurt, I wouldn't be laughing. But like, she was a good sport about it, and it's pretty funny. I mean, just
there's just the video
She
again
just
here.
plops over.
Also, look at everybody in masks. Like, everybody's still in masks there.
This reminds me of the grape lady. Do you remember that very, very famous YouTube video, like when YouTube first started?
I don't remember
You
that.
don't remember. This
No.
woman was a news anchor for some like small town. They took her to a winery. They had her grape stomp. And she's grape stomping and then she falls out and she's going, oh. And she's just like, she makes the weirdest noises when she falls out of the grape bucket or whatever. I'm not a wino, so I don't know what you call that, but
I just think this video is like a perfect representation of, you know, the current status of America. Because it's just funny because it's like everything's falling apart. President Biden's a joke. He can't speak straight. He falls walking up to Air Force One, and like the economy. And these are the people that sit here and lecture all of America. Like, oh, America's so bad and racist and this and that, and there they are. Their show is falling apart too. She's tumbling over and crashing in front of millions of people live on TV.
At times, I feel like you just got to think that, like, maybe some of this is done on purpose. Because we have talked about The View more than I ever thought we would. And I feel
it's all publicity stunt.
And I feel like that's why maybe some of these shows are really good, because they're like, all right, well, that could be a good take, but how do we make it crazy? Like, how do we
Well,
make
that's
this
true.
like,
Those are producers doing their job. But I mean, I think she genuinely fell by accident. But at least she's all right.
Yeah, I think that's all it is too. But I'm interested to see with The View what they're going to end up doing with that open conservative seat. And I think they've talked about that. I'd love to get your take on that, because they've had a few people. Like, I know Michelle Tafoya, she was an NBC Sports reporter, and she just had her final sideline job at the Super Bowl, and now she said she's getting into politics. Actually, she had a good little interview on Tucker's show, but she'd been on that show before. Condoleezza Rice has been on the show.
Condoleezza did great, and she actually got the audience to applaud her for several things that she said. I mean, so I think Condoleezza, especially because I don't even know what she's up to now. I mean, I feel like she has an open enough schedule that she could probably be a permanent co-host. I think she would be a great choice. She is... I'm surprised they even invited her on in the first place. Because I don't think that for the permanent co-host position for that spot for the conservative, that they're going to choose anyone that's truly a hardcore conservative that could just own them. I want them to choose Condoleezza. I just don't know if they will. I think they're going to go with someone a lot softer, who's more, like a Mitt Romney type, like a Rhino type. That's who they're going to choose. But, Candace Owens or Condoleezza Rice, somebody hardcore like that is very well spoken and can just crush. I think they would be good.
Yeah. I feel like that would just be a must-viewed program.
Yeah,
every single day. If they actually got
that
a
would be fantastic.
legit conservative, I just don't know why they wouldn't do that.
Because they don't want their ideas challenged. They never want their ideas challenged. They want everybody to clap, and they want to be like, oh, yeah, it's such a good... I mean, you know what I mean? It's like...
That's the thing with Meghan McCain, though. Like, she's so hated by both the left and the right. Like, she wasn't really in a winning position there, because even if she made a good point, you just don't like her. You can't have somebody who's likable, like Condoleezza Rice or Candace Owens, and smart. Right. That would be just a quadruple threat that they couldn't handle.
Yeah, I just don't know why they wouldn't do it.
I think they want an echo chamber. I mean, that's what Twitter is essentially becoming. They just want to ban everyone that has a difference of opinion. They want to silence anyone on, social media that says anything different. So why wouldn't that happen in the real world? I think that would definitely happen on a show like that, where, like Alex is saying, they'll just get some cookie cutter person that's not actually really down in their beliefs, but just someone that, it appears to be a conservative, so we look diverse, And I think they probably just don't want to be canceled. If they actually brought someone like Candace Owens on the show, or someone that has a very strong opinion.
Well, Candace, and I mean this in the best way, but Candace Owens also is not afraid to be mean. I don't think it's mean. I just think it's very blunt. But to the left, it's mean to them. But they don't want anyone like that. I mean, and even though Joy and Whoopi and them, they're all very mean. But they need somebody strong like Candace, I think, to go toe to toe with them. Someone like Candace Cameron Bure is too nice. You know what I mean? And she was the co-host before.
Yeah, because I don't know if there's another show like that out there. I think there was. I might be going blank on his name. It's like Eric Cigar or something like that. I know he's a journalist. He's like more on the right, and then his show, they've been on Joe Rogan before. I'm going blank on the name of the show, but I think it's the only one I could think of where you have someone that's more left-leaning and someone that is definitely right-leaning, and then they have a daily show together.
Well, they're doing that right now with, who is the guy who wears the little red hat from New York? He just ran for mayor, Curtis something. He just ran for mayor in New York. They're doing a show with him and Anthony Weiner. I can't think of his last name, but they're doing a podcast right now. It's like, why are we choosing Anthony Weiner? I mean, he's literally a pedophile. Like, why?
Unfortunate name to be a pedophile.
Well,
too.
right. So I don't understand, but that's like one example I know of one show that they're trying to push out there of someone on the left and someone on the right. What is that guy's name?
I can't.
I thought it was
remember.
Curtis something.
Can't remember.
I don't know.
I cannot remember.
Yeah,
that's
people
when that's
listening
when we
know.
need help from the people in the back a little bit more. I can't remember. I try to remember all these names.
Sliwa, not JoJo.
This is Samsonite. That's what it started with. I knew it started with an S.
You know, if you know, you know, and if you don't, you don't. You know.
Slappy. But as we wrap up too, like once again, where can people go to make sure they register for YWLS and tell them the promo code?
Go to tpusa.com/YWLS and use promo code POPLITICS.
POPLITICS, or you can use promo code Jon. It's so quick. You think about how just JON. Just think about all
it's easy to spell.
All the time you'd say, but please actually use POPLITICS because it's about the ladies. That's what it's about. But yeah, I think as we wrap this up, as we have a conversation about The View, once again, I feel like it's been a topic of conversation on this show. Have conversations with people on the other side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There might be places like The View where they just want to stifle conversation. They just want to have that echo chamber. We don't want to have an echo chamber on the conservative side either. No. And I think that's where there's times, I think we're always open to have, no matter what your beliefs are, to like be on this couch. I think we just posted that on our Instagram as well. Even if you're on the other side of the aisle, boom, let's chat. All right, coming up next, you got Human Events Daily with Jack Posobiec. See you tomorrow.
How much does the Earth cost? I'm gonna buy the entire Earth.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard today's edition of Human Events Daily, powered by Turning Point USA. Today's top stories. First, a U.S. military analyst says that the Pentagon is misreading Russia's strategy in Ukraine. We'll dig into it next. The Canadian Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, participated in a protest holding a pro-Nazi banner. What's going on with that? We'll explain. Third, Polish civilians are showing solidarity with Ukrainian refugees. We're going to talk all about that situation. Then finally, we warned you about this. The Federal Reserve is now signaling plans to increase interest rates. All this and more ahead, Human Events Daily. Well, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov gave a wide-ranging press conference with multiple members of Western media today to explain, or at least make his pitch for what Russia is doing in Ukraine. We're going to play a clip of that I think really explains the heart of the matter, at least from their perspective.
If you paid your attention probably to the fact that Europe, mostly in the United States, are trying to close down all the outlets, media outlets and information sources broadcast by Russia and from Russia on how the special military operation progresses and advances and how the Ukrainian army and the neo-Nazi battalions behave towards the peaceful civilians. Please learn more facts. Don't try to pretend that this American action movie is developing according to your plan of absolute good and absolute evil.
So you see what they're saying there. They're trying to make it out that this is simply a matter between Russia and Ukraine. And they clearly do not want the West to be involved with any of it. Now, that being said, you can agree or disagree, right? Clearly, we disagree with anything that leads towards bloodshed, invasion, and the destruction of cities like this. But at the same time, we're not going to sit there and say, oh, all of Russia just went crazy and they woke up one day and decided to do this attack. No. We're going to tell the truth and explain how we came to this situation. And we're also going to explain what Russia is doing in Ukraine. Because you've heard a lot of people, and there's been a lot of happy talk in Washington, D.C., and you hear this out of the Pentagon, you see this all across Twitter, hashtag mill Twitter and all this stuff saying, oh, they're getting bogged down, they're getting destroyed, completely wasted. They don't know what they're doing. They don't have any tactics. This is, a complete failure, a total collapse. Russia doesn't even have any plan. They don't have any strategy. Well, the question, though, is if that were true, how is it that they're continuing day after day after day to gain territory on the ground? How is it they are increasing? We've got reports out this day, or this morning at least, that they now control almost 20% of the landmass of Ukraine. I want you to understand, but the entire territory of Ukraine is massive, massive country, right? This is the largest country in Europe outside of Russia itself. If you were to stretch it on a map of the United States from east to west, Ukraine would stretch the entire length all the way from New York to Chicago. That's exactly how far it is, from the East Coast all the way to Chicago, essentially as the Polish border. Massive, massive territory. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And that's exactly what Russia is doing in this situation. Now, there's a new analysis out by Bill Roggio. Bill Roggio is the senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies and the editor of the Long War Journal. He's a former signalman and infantryman in the U.S. Army and New Jersey National Guard. And what is his headline? Putin is not crazy, and the Russian invasion is not failing. The West's delusions about this war and its failure to understand the enemy will prevent it from saving Ukraine, writes military analyst Bill Roggio. Wishful thinking has the upper hand in the battle to shape Western perceptions of the war in Ukraine. Sympathy for the outnumbered and outgunned defenders of Kiev has led to the exaggeration of Russian setbacks, misunderstanding of Russian strategy, and even baseless claims from amateur psychoanalysts that Putin has lost his mind. A more sober analysis shows that Russia may have sought a knockout blow, but always had well-laid plans for follow-on assaults if its initial moves proved insufficient. The world has underestimated Putin before, and those mistakes have led, in part, to this tragedy in Ukraine. We must be clear-eyed now that the war is underway. Yet even the professionals at the Pentagon are letting sympathy cloud their judgment. Just 2 days into Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the DoD briefers were quick to claim that failing to take Kiev within 48 hours amounted to a serious setback. They said the offensive was behind schedule, it had failed because the capital had not fallen. But U.S. leaders should have learned to restrain their hopes after their catastrophic withdrawal from Afghanistan. Once again, they are falling into the trap of failing to understand the enemy and his objectives. Russia is employing their deep battle strategy. Remember, the Russian army fought on this exact same terrain in World War II, only 80 years ago. Marshal Zhukov defeated the German army on these very same roads, these very same cities. They used a strategy of attack, 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 continue attacking, then when weak points arise, envelop around them and continue attacking. This has always been Russian strategy. And I guarantee you the Russian army studies Marshal Zhukov and the battles of World War II, and they're employing that exact same strategy here today. Well, the Prime Minister of Canada, the Vice Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, is caught up in a little bit of her own scandal. Now, you might remember her. She was the hammer. She was the one who was going after these truckers. Like, Trudeau was the light touch. He was the velvet glove of the whole thing. He was, oh, we just care about Canadian citizens, and we just love Canada so much. We want you to be safe, and I will make you safe if I have to throw every single one of you in jail, like they did, by the way, with the overall organizer, Tamara Lich, of the Freedom Convoy, when they brought her out, by the way, in shackles in court over the charge of, and I kid you not, this is the charge, mischief. She's being held in shackles over the charge of criminal mischief, right? Like, you know, like is that like mischief night when we were kids and you'd go around, not that I would ever do it, but go around, you know, with toilet paper and eggs and all? No, this is a joke. It's a complete farce. Well, Chrystia Freeland, you might remember her for coming out and saying that she would take away the bank accounts of not only the truckers, but anyone who supported them. Take a listen.
And then finally, let me say, for anyone who is concerned that their accounts may have been frozen because of their participation in these illegal blockades and occupation, the way to get your account unfrozen is to stop being part of the blockade and occupation. These measures were put in place to disrupt illegal activity in Canada.
Now, of course, we remember the way that they justified all these harsh measures was because at one point, very early on during all of this, somebody walked by, a completely identified person walked by one of these protests with a swastika, with a Nazi flag, right? And he was immediately kicked out. And people couldn't figure out who he was. He was never seen again, right? With this like totally brand new flag that looks like it had just been purchased and just taken out of the box. But here's one problem. Chrystia Freeland is in a little bit of an issue herself because she just had to delete a tweet. What was the tweet that she deleted? Well, Chrystia Freeland, turns out, is of Ukrainian descent. And Chrystia Freeland was participating in a pro-Ukraine demonstration in Canada just yesterday. Yet at one point, she deleted a tweet and then reposted it with a similar image. But what was missing was her holding up a red and black banner in the middle of the street. What was that red and black banner, you ask? Why did she delete the tweet? Why was it taken away? Well, it turns out that Chrystia Freeland was holding up a red and black scarf or a banner that appears to represent the colors of the Bandera movement, a far-right Ukrainian nationalist movement linked to neo-Nazis. Also visible at the rally were many Bandera flags representing the far-right Ukrainian nationalist movement. If you don't know who Stepan Bandera is, he's essentially a regional Hitler. This guy committed actual genocide against Jews, Poles, Russians, essentially anyone who was not Ukrainian in that part of the world. And yet Chrystia Freeland and these groups are coming out and supporting. I'm not saying Chrystia Freeland herself supports any of that, but she went and accidentally, we're told, held up this banner. Now, maybe she knew what it was, maybe knew what she wasn't. We don't know, but we know that she posted a picture of herself holding this thing up, and she did not acknowledge it. She didn't apologize. She didn't explain what was going on. She didn't say, look, you know, somebody handed me that thing. I didn't understand what it was. But hold on a second. She's the one who, from her own standards, said that anyone who supports these groups or anyone who's involved in this thing is, by extension, an extremist because of the crime of guilt of association. And yet here is she doing the exact same thing. Now, a bunch of people, by the way, after I pointed that out, we found that she deleted her tweet because, of course, the internet is forever. We've still got the tweet. We've still got the photo of this. A lot of people pointed out that Chrystia Freeland has a little bit of connection to all of this, that her own grandfather was the editor of a Nazi paper in Ukraine during World War II. And so you got to understand, the situation is quite complicated because parts of Ukraine in World War II actually did support the Nazis, actually did join the SS and form Ukrainian SS units. And a lot of these groups like Azov Battalion that you see on the ground fighting in Ukraine today are the remnants of those same groups because they hated Russia so much, because they hated Poland so much, that they ended up thinking that it would be better for them, better for Ukrainian ultra-nationalists to join up with the Nazis. And this is just facts, right? This is just history. This is just something that, you know, we don't say that we're in support of it, obviously, but we can't deny the historical truth. And certainly it doesn't justify invading Ukraine. But understand that these things are deep-seated ethnic clashes that did take place and are continuing to take place that have driven all of us and driven history to this moment. Have absolutely driven history to this moment. And we're talking about stuff that happened 100 years ago, but we're also talking about stuff that's happening right now because you see these same battalions in. So for Chrystia Freeland, of course, we don't blame her for the crimes of her fathers, right? That's not fair. That's not what we do in this country. Or at least it isn't what we used to do. But Chrystia Freeland seems to love collective punishment when it comes to truckers, when it comes to working class people. And so my question is, Chrystia Freeland, when are you going to freeze your own bank accounts? When are you going to kick yourself off social media? And when are you going to throw yourself in jail? All right, folks, if you want to support the podcast, if you want to continue to support the work we do here, how do you do it? You go to mypillow.com/POSO. You use promo code POSO. And you know that picture that's been going around, this is the picture that's going around the world now, of Kamala Harris closing her eyes and leaning back. The folks at MyPillow they got a version of it where they put in Mike Lindell handing her a pillow. And so you can sleep like a vice president through a Biden State of the Union address. If you go to mypillow.com and use promo code POSO, you get the big savings. And if President Biden and Vice President Harris know what's good for them, they will use promo code POSO as well, because Biden, now I know he's been getting a lot of sleep lately, but he would be getting a better quality of sleep if he was doing so on a MyPillow with the complete upgraded and sophisticated sleep package. You got the mattress topper, you got the sheets, you got the towels that actually work, by the way. So I know there's been a lot of harrowing images lately, a lot of brutal scenes if you've been following social media or Telegram channels like I have, and I watch all of them. I watch every single thing that's come out of here. You're not going to send me a video at this point that I have yet to see. But I do want to also show you something positive. I want to show you what's going on right now in Poland, on the other side of the Polish-Ukrainian border, as these refugees, mostly women and children and the elderly, when they come in, the way that they've been accepted by the Polish people, they've been greeted, especially the children. They're handing out food, they're handing out toys. Go take a look at this incredible image at the train station in Poland. And so these are some of the most heartwarming scenes that we're seeing out of all of this, that if there is any silver lining, it's knowing that this is strengthening the bond between Poland and the Ukrainian people. You know, while you see this aggression coming from the east, when you turn west, you see nothing but peace, friendship, and Christian love. And that's exactly what you should be seeing in these times. This is what Poland stands for. Poland has always been like this. If you need a friend in this world, find a Pole. There's people saying, you know, and Politico has the article up today, you know, a mother arrived following a 2-day train trip across Ukraine from the town of Odessa with her 7-year-old daughter. They started bombing the city. She had to get out. They're now saying, according to Politico, that more than 677,000 refugees have left, and about half of them coming to Poland from Ukraine. It has a 500-kilometer border with Ukraine, and of course, a similar language, and the culture is very similar. Now, Poland is typically more Catholic. Ukraine is generally Orthodox, so you do have that split there. But at the same time, you're still Christian. The languages are very similar. They're not interchangeable, but you can sort of you can make your way across. You can communicate. You can get your point across. And so we've also heard, by the way, and I was reading some reports coming out of the Polish government today, that actual Polish citizens, just regular Polish families, right? They're going through the villages, they're going through the cities. People are opening up their own homes. They say, now, a lot of Polish houses, to understand how this works, Poles typically have big houses because Polish people typically have big families. And so what does that mean? Houses with extra bedrooms, houses with extra areas to sleep. So they're opening them up and they're allowing Ukrainian refugees from all the way from the border, all the way up to Warsaw, out to Krakow, etc. They're allowing people to stay in their own homes. They say, come, we're opening our door. You stay with us. You don't need to have these massive refugee centers. They're trying very hard to not establish permanent, refugee camps or anything like this with tents, etc. No. It's actual homes and individuals and families stepping up the way that we are called to, the way that the Bible asks us to, stepping up to care for our friends, to care for the people, to actually be there when it matters. And this is just one of those things, and I hope we're going to see more of that. I hope you're going to see so much more of these types of images and these types of brotherhood coming out in these harrowing days and, quite frankly, it looks like months ahead. And so Poland, which has always been demonized for being conservative, for being traditional, for trying to reform their country, is actually going and doing the thing that they should have been doing all along, that everyone should be doing all along. And if you want to help right now, go to Poland and help these people. Well, the Fed hike is now finally upon us. Look, we told you for weeks and weeks this was going to happen. A lot of people out there, some of the more, cued in, like Zero Hedge financial blogs have been talking about this. They said this is going to be potentially a series of hikes. And we're now seeing the first beginning of a series of hikes in your interest rates in order to combat what? Bidenflation. We now know that inflation is at its highest peak in 40 years, all the way since the 1970s, since we've seen inflation this high. And the Fed, of course, is going to try to respond. Now, notice you don't hear any responses from the Biden administration of tapering spending or tightening up quantitative easing or saying that they're not going to be, which essentially means they're not going to be printing as much money as they used to. No. Are they going to go after ESGs? Are they going to go after BlackRock or Blackstone or any of these massive, Vanguard? Are they going to do anything to prevent all of these changes to our market and the way that they've been essentially financing their friends and buddies to go out, and they're the ones who get this money directly from the Fed, and then they distribute it along their political lines using ESG scores? We're not going to have any of that. No. The Great Reset will continue, but at the same time, you all are going to have to pay higher rates. Here's Fed Chairman Powell talking about it.
I do think it will be appropriate to raise our target range for the federal funds rate at the March meeting in a couple of weeks, and I'm inclined to propose and support a 25 basis point rate hike. We're also going to write down our new summary of economic projection, individual forecasts, which will show each participant's views of the path forward in the economy and with rates. I also expect that at this meeting, we'll make good progress toward an agreement on a plan to shrink the balance sheet. We will not finalize that plan at this meeting. We'll do that when we think the time is right at a coming meeting. The bottom line is that we will proceed, but we will proceed carefully as we learn more about the implications of the Ukraine war for the economy. We use our tools to support financial stability and macroeconomic stability. We're going to avoid adding uncertainty to what is already an extraordinarily challenging and uncertain moment. So that's
And now this in from thehill.com. Gasoline prices have risen 40%. Energy prices rose 27%. Food prices rose 7% annually as of January, according to the Labor Department's Consumer Price Index. As the war in Ukraine continues, the price of gas is going to go up and up and up. I've seen people forecasting potentially $200 per barrel for oil. What does that mean? That could potentially mean $6 a gallon gas average in the United States. And there's already parts of the United States where you're seeing $6 a gallon gas. Because why? Because we're not doing anything to actually increase our domestic supply of energy. We can do it tomorrow, right? President Biden could come out tomorrow and say, we're going to invest in nuclear, we're going to remove the moratorium on offshore drilling, we're going to go for fracking, and we're going to go into ANWR. Boom. Oh, by the way, and we're going to increase the leases up in Alaska anyway for these various areas that we could go directly for. We could easily go for this. But no. They don't want to acknowledge that it's a supply and demand issue. They want to pretend that it's just a financial game and that they can play around with this money. They can play around with dollars and then act as if that's the only way out of the trap. Why? Because I said before, it's because of this ESG system and this global green mindset that has completely taken over not only our capital markets and our financial wealth markets, but the White House and so many levers of power throughout the United States. They believe that the only way to do this is to invest in these ESG based outcomes and ESG compliant companies. Right? It's completely ridiculous. You're going to drive our country off a cliff. And by the way, you're going to aid Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. All right. And that wraps up Human Events Daily for today. Remember our oath, our vow, our solemn promise to all of you to be good, be brief, be gone. But before we go, it's time for today's history break. March 3rd, 1931, the Star-Spangled Banner, written by Francis Scott Key during the War of 1812, Baltimore Harbor, was officially adopted as the national anthem of the United States. Remember, this is the United States of America, and we are the American people. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, you have my permission.
Well, hello and welcome to the Breakaway Podcast. I'm your host, Jon Root. We have another very special Sunday conversation. Someone that's made a huge impact on my life. We're going to get into that special story about how he was assisting me and just about 100 other freelance journalists in the sports media industry when the pandemic hit. And also our guest here, Larry Lage, is an Associated Press reporter. He went out to Beijing for the Winter Olympics. He was inside and having those conversations with athletes, other media members, finding out what's really going on here in conversations outside of athletics. But Larry's one of those people that sticks to true journalism. Someone like Larry, you're not going to hear about his politics. Someone like Larry, you're just going to hear the story. And we don't see that in sports media much anymore. But when we have this conversation about the Olympics, there's a reason why I reached out to Larry. Not only do I want to get him on and, give him a special thank you for how he's impacted my life over the years, but the Olympics mean a lot to me. I think the Olympics have the ability to bring people together unlike anything else. When do you have, especially when we're talking right now, we're on the verge of war. When can you have, Russia and Ukraine athletes go against each other in just competition? When can you have, China and the United States just out here slalom skiing, and that's it. That the Olympics have the ability to bring those countries together and bring those people together in competition. We don't need to have political speeches or things like that. But when you have the International Olympic Committee that honors the CCP and gifts them and blesses them with the Olympics, this is the first time you had Summer and Winter Olympics in the same place. And while there's human rights violations and issues going on over there, there's no way that I thought we should have the Olympics over there. But if we do, and we're sending our athletes out there, we need reporters out there that are going to tell the story. And that's what Larry did. He's going to get into what his day-to-day looked like, and it's a fantastic conversation. He also covers a lot of University of Michigan. He'll touch on a few things there. But upon further ado, this is another special Sunday conversation, this time with Larry Lage from the Associated Press. Larry, you obviously got to be happy to be home. You were just out there in Beijing. You had to deal with some pretty insane COVID protocols. I know we kind of make the joke sometimes. It seemed like Monsters, Inc. You had 2319 people in hazmat suits out there. But tell us about your experience specifically at the airport when you were landing.
Well, when I got home to the Detroit airport, I almost kissed the ground like the Pope does. I think I put that joke on Instagram, but it was pretty close to being a reality. I've never been more happy to be home than I was. That was my fourth Winter Olympics, and each trip I'm gone 3 weeks. But going to Torino, Italy, or even Sochi, Russia, certainly Vancouver, British Columbia is nothing like coming back from China during the pandemic. And it started when we got to the airport in Beijing. Every single person working there was in full hazmat suits. One of those people gave me the most aggressive COVID test of my life. It tickled the back of my brain.
You basically got a lobotomy, it sounds like, Larry.
Yeah, they were digging. And I didn't have just a couple cute tears. I was flat out crying. And I've had 40 tests because I've been in the Detroit Lions bubble. So I've been subject to a lot of tests. I'm a veteran of them, but nothing was like that. And that was just the first of about 21, 22 that I had every day. It's between 6 and 9 a.m., right below my hotel room. I went and you had to scan your badge, get the test, and then scan your badge again to leave. You had to have your badge or your credential, which was also your visa, scanned every time you left the hotel. And then if you were good in terms of testing negative, it would say thank you in English and in Mandarin. And if you didn't get that thank you, then you were going back to get tested. And if you tested positive, you were put in an isolation room, your own hotel room. And basically they bring you food and test you every day. And there were athletes that were stuck like that for 12 days, some journalists too.
12 days, because I know we saw some of the information about the skeleton athlete from Belgium that was stuck in isolation, but you're telling me people were stuck for 12 days?
Yeah, so one of the stars of Nordic Combine, and your listeners are probably like me, like what? Nordic Combine is ski jumping and cross country skiing in the same day, same athletes going for the same gold. And one of the stars of the sport, Jarl Magnus Reber of Norway, 3-time world champion, number 2 in the world. He tested positive and he was stuck in isolation for more than 10 days. And since you follow me on Twitter, you might have saw this share. This poor guy had a 1-minute lead in a cross country race, and he was supposed to go left around this curve, but he kind of did a wrong way loop. And he just explained that, he looked up and he went the wrong way and basically blamed COVID like we do for a lot of things. I felt horrible for him. And the next day he chose to go home. There was another event that he could have participated in, and he said, like, I'm out, I'm not fit to compete. So, and there were some journalists, I didn't know the journalist, but a guy on a bus said that he was in isolation for 12 days. And it's not where you want to be, because the food also was not very good in China. The people, I have to say, I've been on your show for a few minutes. I have to say the people, the volunteers, the rank and file, the Chinese people were Chick-fil-A nice, like so nice, like over the top, like jump out of their seats to help you. And one of the young women who I got to know just by saying hello every day and being friendly came up to me and in English said, I just want to tell you, you're very nice, and like almost made me tear up. And could probably work one up for you now, but like I have to say that the Chinese people were so nice. And I've been blessed to travel around the world with my job and around the country, and it's another example that you cannot judge whatever you think of China, whatever you think of Russia, whatever you think of the United States and the government that we have now or the government we had 2 years ago. You cannot judge, or you shouldn't judge, a country by its people. Most people are good people.
Yes.
I mean, the people in Russia were nice to me. People in China were nice to me. Vancouver, Canada is a happy place. So they were nice to me. Italy is my homeland. Of course, they're nice to me. But, Jim Leland had a great line, former Tiger manager. He said, most people are good people. My office, your office, and the post office. He had some other colorful lines I won't share, but most people are good people. And I encountered many of them in China.
That's what we tried to cover on our show too, because obviously there's been a lot of stances that I think people like Enes Kanter Freedom, people like me, I didn't think that our athletes should be going out there. I didn't think it was basically honoring the CCP in the way that I was seeing it. But at the same time, you're hoping that our athletes are safe. We talk about the people of China. There's some great people out there. And I'm glad you bring that up, because we brought that up on our show quite a bit. It's like, hey, we were talking about the government here, and this is something that I am adamantly against. But a lot of it was too because I didn't feel like our athletes and then reporters like you would potentially be safe. Do you feel like there was any sort of safety issues? Because it seemed like there were some deputy directors that were working with Chinese officials that were threatening people. You say anything about human rights issues, you say anything about COVID, you say anything that goes contrary to the Olympic spirit, which sounds like they were making their own definition of Olympic spirit. Did you feel like those threats were hitting home? Did you feel unsafe? And do you think there was any athletes that really felt unsafe?
I did not. And I, toward the end, because one of my colleagues was writing about athletes and their relative silence on the human rights issues with the Muslim minority in China that human rights groups say are facing a genocide, as we speak. You didn't really hear athletes speak out on it. And I pulled a couple aside, away from the news conference. I didn't want to put them on a spot in front of a bunch of cameras and ask them like, hey, do you have a take on some of the human rights issues that people around the world are talking about relative to China? And they didn't want to touch it. Now, whether they, the two that I talked to, you brought up Kanter from Turkey. There's actually a Turkish ski jumper who one day in training had the crescent moon and stars on a blue background that represented that Muslim minority community that is reportedly facing atrocities right now of genocide. And that community was super excited that this Turkish ski jumper was representing him. Well, the next day he didn't have the same skis. And along with a reporter from Reuters, we asked him about it, and he said, I'm a sportsman. I'm here to compete. Like, I'm not answering your questions. So he kind of played the middle. Like, he kind of dropped this little, symbolic statement, but then he didn't want to talk about it. Now the question is, did someone get to him and say, like, no, don't do that? I don't know. And when I asked the Turkish ski jumper and a Japanese ski jumper these questions, no one was stopping me. I was able to do my job. Now, was somebody like tapped into my phone, listening to my conversations, watching my texts and my business on my phone? I don't know. AP told us basically to take your personal finance off your phone, probably good business, and use VPN as much as you can. So, I was tunneled in with a VPN service that allowed me to get to my social media in ways that I couldn't without the VPN. Like in my hotel room, I could not get to Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. But once I used the VPN and tunneled through, I could. So, that was different for sure.
Yeah, because I know there was delegations that were telling their athletes specifically, don't bring your personal mobile devices, just bring burner phones, because they were scared of spying. Did you get a breakdown from the Associated Press or did the media before you even left the United States to be like, hey, this is how you can prepare for this and this is how you can best protect yourself?
Yes, absolutely. And that was one of the tips that we got, like take your financial apps, your banking off your phone. AP did not think we needed to have burner phones and burner laptops. I know some media outlets, including USA Today, had its reporters with burner phones and burner laptops. We were told that you should basically take any app off your phone that you don't need. And when you come and VPN as much as you can. And when you get home, wipe everything off your phone and start back over. Now, I haven't done that. I have thousands of contacts in my phone. And even though I see them there in my cloud, I can't take them off my phone. Like, I was texting with, not to name drop, but I was texting with Jim Harbaugh while I was in China, and Anthony Lynn, former Chargers coach. And, I've got a lot of contacts in my phone that I shudder to think of, like adding them one by one. I've never done that on my phone, and I'm just kind of freaked out. So I haven't done that. And I also have pretty strong faith that tells me my phone and I am okay. So I hope I'm all right.
Was there any point during your time out there in Beijing where you felt like you wanted to speak up about something, or you wanted to at least have like a conversation about whether like human rights issues or the aspects of, is this even the best place to have the Winter Olympics when it came to climate? Because it seems like, especially when you're dealing with skiers, they didn't seem to like the conditions much at all. So was there a time where you felt like, okay, well, I just got a job to do, but maybe there's specific stories that other people aren't telling that I'd like to go out on a limb and try to tell?
So I did some stories that I think were important for society on my beats that were not necessarily related to human rights issues facing China. Like Nordic Combined is the only sport without in the Olympics without gender equity. Again, Nordic Combined is ski jumping and cross country. And despite the fact that women compete internationally, they don't have a spot in the Winter Olympics. So I wrote about that. I wrote about mental and physical health through the prism of ski jumping, which is ripe with eating disorders. Who knew? As I'm doing my reporting, I find that there's a phrase, fat don't fly. And this is something that ski jumpers are told and that they hear because the physics behind flight suggests that every pound heavier you are, you're not going to fly as far. And the defending champion on the women's side in the Olympics, the defending Olympic champion, Maren Lundby, also from Norway. I was the first English interview she did talking about her decision to take the year off and put her physical and mental health first. Also got into some access issues and the lack of diversity in ski jumping in another kind of grassroots story I did. So, I wrote some stories and did some reporting, I think, that are not just in the toy department, as we say in sports. Most of our coverage is fun and games. So I like to think that I was part of some transcendent reporting on those topics. I did not write about the human rights issues specific to China. I contributed in a reporting way to one of our colleagues who did. And yet I personally didn't feel like an urge to come out and say a lot of these things. AP has pretty strict standards or protocol for us to not share our political views on social media. Like, we're not supposed to. And I also am that way personally. Like, I don't really want to tell you who I vote for and tell you who you should vote for. I prefer to keep that private. I don't share my my baseball Hall of Fame ballot because I don't have to, and I don't really want to engage with people who want to debate my votes because I don't have to share them. So I'm kind of that way anyway. I'm a stay in my lane type of guy. But then in my own way, in my own time, I pray for people who I think need prayers. And so I guess that's how I reconcile it.
Well, because I feel like that's a lost art of journalism now. Is like a lot of people aren't like you, Larry. They decide that whether right or left, they need to insert their politics somehow, some way into stories. And I think it's a bummer that it's found its way into sports. Obviously, there's so much politics ingrained in sports now that you probably deserve to hear both sides, but you're a journalist. You're going out there to do your job in Beijing and say, hey, I'm going to tell you what's going on here. And it doesn't matter who I voted for, what my background is politically or anything like that. I'm just here to tell stories. Why do you think that's been lost in sports media so much, especially lately?
Well, I think because with social media and branding, if you will, that people want to set themselves apart and let people know who they are. And that gives them free rein to do so, and they choose to. And often, it's not real sexy to be in the middle, right? It's not real sexy to be the AP guy that you don't know who he voted for or if he wants Michigan or Michigan State, but that's how we roll. And when you look at media surveys about what outlets you trust, and they're on the right or they're on the left or in the middle, like AP is like number one, like right in the middle. People trust AP, and I appreciate that. I mean, I've been AP for 22 years and, plan to be a lifer. And I'm glad that we do journalism the way they do and that I do it the way I do, because I don't want anyone to ever think when they're reading let's say Michigan State, because then that's where I am from. I'm from Ann Arbor. I went to Michigan State. I was the mascot for.
That's a fun fact. How long were you the mascot for, Larry?
93, 94. So my junior year. And then I live in Ann Arbor now. I've lived in Ann Arbor for 22 years, and my dad's a season ticket holder for like 65 years. And so I'm so ingrained in these two schools, and I don't want anyone on either side to say, oh, that's a Michigan State guy, or that's a Michigan guy. Or, he's a Biden guy, or he's a Trumper. Look at these tweets. Like, you can't find one from me. I promise you. Cause I can't. And even if I could, I wouldn't, because I don't think it's necessary. And I think we have enough things dividing us. Hopefully sports can be a place that brings us together. And I'm not going to, fight that fight. I'm just going to keep doing me. So that's how I roll. And thankfully, I work for an employer that wants me to do my job the way I do it and doesn't push me to push the envelope. They want the facts, and they want them first, and they want smart reporting. And, I plan to deliver.
Yeah. And that's what I can appreciate about you, Larry, ever since I've gotten to know you, is obviously you're someone that it doesn't matter where I'm at politically, personally. I'm just going to give you the stories, and that's it. And then I know for me, I have my hands in both buckets. Obviously, I host a political show here with Turning Point USA, and then I have a sports show. But like here, when we're talking about sports, like I just want to have conversations with people, and it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. Let's just talk about what happened in the Olympics. Let's talk about what's going on at the University of Michigan. Let's talk about the Detroit Lions. Let's just talk about sports, and we don't need to come out here and like, hey, Larry, tell me how you've been voting or who you think you're going to go for when we got the midterms coming up. What about 2024? I don't think that stuff matters, but I think it's been inserted into sports conversations way too much. But going off of that, Larry, when you have stories like U.S. defectors and people that have decided to forego their U.S. citizenship to go join teams like Team China, how do you tell that story without, obviously people are going to think what they're going to think. But you just want to give them the facts and say, hey, here's this figure skater, here's this skier, here's just this Olympian that's decided to forego their U.S. citizenship. They've joined this team. This is what it is. Make what you will out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what our job is, at least at the Associated Press, present the facts without bias and let both sides say what they'd like to say about those topics. I mean, I think that's basic journalism. And I don't know if one of the people you're talking about is Eileen Gu, who, I was able to be, 3 feet away during her interviews. She, for your listeners that don't know, Eileen Gu is 18 years old and she was born in America. Her mom was born in China, and Eileen chose to compete for China. And she became the first action sports Olympian to have 3 medals in the same Olympics. Action sports being like X Games type sports, snowboarding, freestyle skiing, and that kind of thing. I honestly, in my heart of hearts, don't have an opinion on that, about whether she should have competed for the U.S. or she was free to. I don't honestly feel strongly about it. So even if I had an opinion, I'm not even sure what it would be. My opinion is I don't really care, I guess. Whatever the rules are, I think it's personal choice. But I will say she is one of the most articulate people I've ever been around in my life. Unbelievable. When I heard she got a 1580 on her SAT, it didn't surprise me. Like she was going back and forth in Mandarin and English, back and forth. Now, if she was competing for China and she couldn't speak Mandarin, I think I'd be like, come on, like that's a joke. But she clearly could, and the rules allowed her to compete for China, and she did. In that same half pipe area, I was able to be there for Shaun White's last ride and to be around him when he was interviewed. He's on the other spectrum of age in terms of an Olympian. He's 35 years old on his way out. And, almost getting chills right now thinking about how gracious and cool he was. And he's actually close with one of our writers, Eddie Pells, who talked to him the next day. And Shaun White was on his way to the Super Bowl and, kind of joked that maybe he's going to talk to Tom Brady about, what do you do next? Long story short, that's what I think.
Yeah, so people like Eileen, obviously there's a lot of people that say like, well, it seems like you're kind of empathetic to what's going on with the CCP, but there's other people that can kind of understand, okay, well, you got ties over there. Maybe you're just representing the Chinese people that we brought up earlier in the show. Like there's good people out there. And I think basically this comes down to you're a journalist and you're going to tell the story and make with it what you will, people. If you want to think about this, that, and the other thing, for me, I think I'm going to make a stance of I just probably didn't appreciate that someone can kind of just forego a citizenship or just kind of put the U.S. on the bench. And obviously I know it was one of those where it was a little bit political with Team USA in order for her to just go and join Team China in order to compete. And obviously she's an incredible athlete and we'll always share those stories. But I think a lot of it just comes down to like, here's the story, whether you think she's empathetic to the CCP or she wants to just represent the Chinese people, that's up to you. Yeah, well, of course, this conversation is making me think that,
maybe I should make a run for the 2026 games in Milan Cortina, because my mom was actually born in Italy. So now I'm thinking, like, what Olympic sport could I do?
If you were to pick an Olympic sport, Larry, what would it be?
Well, it's funny because I've had people ask me that, and I guess I'd go bobsled. I'm 5'10", 185, 15% body fat. I'd have to get stronger, more ripped. I may not be big enough because those guys are physically so impressive.
Larry, you got 4 years to prepare. We can get you ripped.
I know. Well, so, I said I'm a lifer at AP, but I might have to apply for a sabbatical. But, I think back to going to Michigan State. Two of my fraternity brothers, John Lividitis, American born, was on the Greek bobsled team in Salt Lake because of his Greek ties. Another guy, Tony Tozzolino, played for Italy in the Olympics. These weren't medal caliber guys, but, to me, if you're not breaking the rules, then you're not breaking the rules. So whether it was Eileen Gu or John Lividitis or Tony Tozzolino, I can see your side of it. It's not something I'm going to get worked up about.
What do you think about the viewership numbers? Because obviously NBC spent pretty much billions of dollars to have the rights to share the Winter Olympics, and Pyeongchang numbers were down. And then this was historic lows here through NBC, people watching it in prime time. Obviously you had some streaming viewers go up just a little bit because a lot of people are watching it on their laptop or their phone. But what do you think about that? And what was the talk with other media members when it came to primetime viewership?
Well, the numbers were horrible. I think a lot of it was the time zone. I think some of it was people not wanting to support anything related to China because of the human rights issues that we've talked about. I think the Russian figure skater, Vaeva, I'm probably mispronouncing her name, the 15-year-old who had heart medications in her, it was basically child abuse. I think the Olympics have turned off a lot of people over the years. Russia continuing to get caught up in doping scandals and get away with it. So I just think the Olympics have turned a lot of people off over the years.
Tell us about, what do you think that the IOC can do and viewers of the Olympics? Because I think the Olympics have the ability to bring people together unlike anything else, which is just sports in general that we talked about earlier. What do you think they can do to fix this branding and have people come together?
I think they should bench Russia from the 2024 Olympics in Paris and the 2026 Olympics in Milan Cortina.
Mm-hmm. And then
you're not welcome.
Final question for you, Larry. What would you tell people that want to get into journalism now? They want to be like you and they want to just tell the stories. And obviously they're so pushed into this hyper and over politicized world and media sector and industry.
So I would say do the same thing that I was told when I was in high school. And I went up to the late Bill Bonds, who was a TV anchorman and the inspiration of the movie Anchorman, for real. I went up to Bill Bonds when I was in high school and I said, I want to get in your business when I grow up. What do you suggest I do? And he said, kid, go to college and get a degree that you can feed your family with in case it doesn't work out. And I did. My degree from Michigan State University is in elementary education because I thought if this doesn't work out, I could see being a teacher and a coach. So you don't need a journalism or a communications degree to be in this business. So I would recommend get a degree that you can feed your family with in case it doesn't work out. And with all your free time, try to get as many reps as you can in podcasting, radio, TV, writing, editing, shooting photos, shooting video, editing photos and videos. The more you can do, the more you can do. Identify your passion and chase your dreams.
Final thing for you, Larry. I do want to tell you thank you again, because I don't think these viewers, I haven't told them really much of the story about when the pandemic hit. And it was a devastating time for a lot of people. I know for me, I was basically a freelancer. I was working for the San Jose Sharks, was working for the Santa Cruz Warriors, and I was involved with a little bit of stuff with NBC Sports out there in the Bay Area. And I had this guy right here, Larry Lage. He sent me, I think it started with $50. And it was someone that I didn't know at all that was deciding, hey, I'm going to help out freelancers in the sports media industry and try to keep them afloat. Because for me, I was freaking out. I didn't know what was next. I didn't know how long this hiatus would be. And to know there's people like you, Larry, I'm honestly like getting a little emotional now to see that like that was just about a couple years ago. And it made such an impact on my life and countless other lives in the media industry. And I feel like we need more people like you, Larry. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. It's been an incredible journey for me kind of reinventing myself over the last few years. But I want to be like you to help, share the truth. Obviously, a lot of people, they don't have to agree with political views, but I hope that we can agree that we want sports back to being unifying again. And I think we can do it if they start emulating people like you.
Hey, I appreciate that. And it's crazy. It's been almost 2 years because that started when the NCAA tournament was canceled in 2020. And I went to bed praying for freelance friends who were going to be in a rough spot without assignments. And I woke up crying about them. And I said, I'm going to do something. So I started a Facebook fundraiser, and with the help of a lot of people, raised more than $35,000 that I distributed to 100 people coast to coast. 90 of them, like you, had no idea who you were before that. And blessed to call you a friend now, and fun to catch up with you on your show here. Best wishes going forward.
Thanks a lot, Larry. We're glad that you're on U.S. soil and that you're doing well. Appreciate you very much.
Amen. See ya.
Well, we all shop at the grocery store because we all need food. But what if you could buy the food you need and donate to TPUSA without even leaving your home? Now you can with Good Ranchers. They sell 100% American meat, and they believe so much in what we are doing that they'll donate $50 to TPUSA on your behalf when you purchase from them. Good Ranchers delivers steakhouse quality beef, chicken, and seafood right to your door. And with the code TPUSA, that's TPUSA, you can donate $50 to our mission while getting absolutely delicious food. You can do good while you eat good. Head on over to goodranchers.com/TPUSA today to solve your meat problem and donate to us. Get ribeyes, New York strips, gourmet burgers, and so much more. Order now with promo code TPUSA, and $50 will be donated to our mission of sharing and preserving true American values. Support American farms and ranches. Go to goodranchers.com/TPUSA and get a box today. Once again, use promo code TPUSA at goodranchers.com/TPUSA so you can do good while you eat good. And there you have it. A great conversation with a great journalist. Larry, I can't thank him enough. And I feel like the last two Sunday conversations, those are a couple people that have made a huge impact, not only on my life, but potentially hundreds of thousands of people's lives with their work. But someone like Larry, I think he hit the nail on the head. He wants sports being unifying again. But unfortunately, sports is dividing us. And getting into that personal story there, it was absolutely mind-blowing to see a Venmo come through after waking up in the morning from someone that I did not know at all. Someone that had no idea what my politics were, had no idea probably how long I'd been in the industry, no idea what my background is. They knew that I was someone that needed help. And I wasn't someone that was soliciting that kind of stuff either. I think you have good people in the sports media industry that decided, hey, here's some people that have been good to me. Here's some people that I believe are doing great work, and people that I feel like are going to be impactful in the sports media industry. And for people to think of me like that, to not only talk me up to other people in the industry, but to financially provide for me once that pandemic hit. I don't want to feel like some sort of victim either. It was a tough time for so many people in every industry across the entire country and across the entire world. So I don't feel like I really deserved it, but for someone to do that, Larry Lage, someone I didn't know at all, That's why I'm saying we need more people like Larry in the sports media industry. We're going to keep these conversations going. I know these are extremely impactful when you get to hear the inside scoop from people like Larry, like what the heck happened out there in Beijing. Obviously, viewership were down. I didn't really want to support it. There's a reason why you didn't want to support it either. Another great conversation. But make sure that you subscribe, like, follow, all that good stuff. We're on Instagram at TPUSA Breakaway. We also release these podcasts on Apple and Spotify. We're also on YouTube and Rumble. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Jon Root.
Oh my armpit.
On your what?
Armpit.
Okay, the way he just said armpit was so sultry. Armpit. Put a music note in the comments if you like the remix better than the original. Uncle Steve, by the way, on TikTok, one of my favorite TikTok accounts to follow, period.
What words do you know in Spanish? What about uno?
What about doubles?
More celebrities coming and speaking out against implant illness. I mean, breast implant illness. They're promoting implant removal. Is Catwoman bisexual? One of your favorite Halloween classics is getting a sequel. And I'll tell you, the very weird thing my parents had to do when I was a baby to get me to sleep, because Olivia Munn has had to get creative with her baby too. I'm Alex Clark, and this is Politics. Another influencer has gotten breast explant surgery to remove her breast implants.
You! Show me them boobies!
You might follow Sofia Esperanza. She used to be a model, but now has 2.7 million followers on Instagram. She said that she got breast implant illness, so she's going back to being all natural.
All right, they're out. Welcome to the itty bitty committee.
Sophia isn't the only celebrity who's had her breast implants removed due to complications or adverse side effects. Yolanda Hadid, Ashley Tisdale, and Ayesha Curry are just a few celebrities who've spoken publicly about removing theirs. Ayesha said hers made her feel sick, and Ashley said that she developed food sensitivities as well as gut issues once she got hers.
Yeah, no problem. Oh. I'm sorry. That guy walked by. It was an accident.
Okay.
I was gonna give you like a nudge on the, like a punch, the friend thing.
It's okay.
I didn't mean. I'm sorry.
If you've gotten breast implants, have they been the best or worst thing that has ever happened to you?
You drunk all the milk, man. Give me my milk back. My milk back.
Zoe Kravitz says she definitely interpreted Catwoman as bisexual because Catwoman lives with her friend Anika in the new Batman and calls her baby, but also has a lot of sexual tension with Batman in the movie.
Well, I've taken a few dips in the lady pond.
Okay, watch the trailer for the new Batman. Do you get bisexual vibes from the new Catwoman? If you did, Batman's gotta find a new date.
Are you under there? What are you hiding?
Selena, don't throw your life away.
Don't worry, honey. I got 9 of them.
Who are some other random characters that should become LGBTQ just for the hell of it? I vote Porky Pig. Bow ties are super gay. Sorry to Tucker Carlson. Tom and Jerry, obviously, and you know the Rugrats eventually learned their ABCs and now all represent a different letter in the LGBT alphabet.
Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!
According to the New York Post, there's a Beetlejuice sequel in the works, and no, they're not casting Mayor Lori Lightfoot as the lead, even if everything is about diversity hires these days.
It's showtime.
For someone who loves all things Halloween and scary, can I just say one of my most unpopular Halloween opinions? I don't like this movie. I feel like it had potential, especially in the scenes where they went to the other side or whatever, but I actually think this movie is incredibly boring. Sorry!
What do you think of this? You like it?
Olivia Munn shared a relatable mom moment with her son, Malcolm.
Yeah, we are outside walking in the backyard in a stroller because it's the only way he'll settle down and chill out. Right, bub? Okay. Oh, we gotta stay out of the sun, so we're relegated to this section of the backyard. But it's working. It's working, right?
When I was a baby, I wouldn't sleep unless my mom and dad drove me around in the car and played Stevie Ray Vaughan, who's this old famous guitar player. Super random, and I doubt anyone under 30 even knows who that is.
Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. I hate to leave you, but I really must say, good night, sweetheart. Good night.
What weird things did your parents have to do to get you to sleep? Now I fall asleep listening to true crime podcasts like a normal person. Thank God I grew out of my weird phases.
As soon as Lizzie found out that she was one of the main suspects in the brutal slaying of her father and stepmother, she was caught by the maid burning the dress she wore on the day of their murders in the kitchen stove. You know, if she wanted to get rid of the dress so badly, she could have made some extra money too by selling it to ThredUp. ThredUp is the world's largest online consignment and thrift store.
Okay, ready for a quick breakdown of what happened this week in pop culture history? It's time for the Pop Culture Rewind. In 1991 this week, Rodney King was severely beaten by police officers in Los Angeles, California. The footage was filmed by observers and then broadcast on television in the US, leading to massive riots in the city of Los Angeles.
That's right.
Then this week in 1993, near Mount Carmel in Waco, Texas, agents of the U.S. Treasury Department's Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms launched a raid against the Branch Davidian compound. At least 80 people, including 22 children, were killed. I did a whole mini documentary on this for Politics. Just YouTube Politics Waco, and it should come up.
On February 28, 1993, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms raided the compound. The Branch Davidians responded with gunfire and quickly killed 4 agents. Inside the buildings, Koresh and his followers hunkered down, refusing to surrender. The siege continued for 51 days.
Then in 1998 this week, Titanic became the first film to gross over $1 billion worldwide. And Leonardo DiCaprio ironically froze to death in the oceans he claims are warming. That's how I walk around my apartment when I see a spider and it runs away before I can smash it.
All right, kids, nothing to be afraid of.
Look!
Say goodbye to the house, kids.
And finally, this week in 2002, the Osbournes debuted on MTV.
I'm not proud of having a poor education. I'm not proud of being dyslexic and having attention deficit disorder. Can you get me some equal? I'm not proud of being a drug addict, alcoholic. I'm not proud about biting the head of a bat.
Sorry, Ozzy. Gen Z cannot relate. And that's what happened this week in pop culture history. I am so freaking excited for you to hear this week's episode of The Spillover. Massive guest. Could have talked to him for 6 hours. I'm not exaggerating. I am still extremely sad it wasn't longer because there was so much I could have asked and talked to him about. All I'm gonna say is that he is a superstar in the true crime world. Find out tonight who the guest will be and watch for the episode to drop at midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific. I really cannot express how amazing this episode is. Subscribe to The Spillover on Apple and Spotify immediately so you don't miss it. Then, heart this episode. Tell me about the weird ways your parents had to get you to sleep or the ways you have to get your own baby to sleep. And tell me your guesses for the Spillover guest today. Please, 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 please share today's episode to your Instagram stories and tell everyone to follow Politics if they're looking for a conservative pop culture Instagram page. We are so close to 100K. And finally, hit that save button. We're back tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. It's pop culture without the propaganda every single day. I'm Alex Clark, and this is Politics. Support Politics, the first ever conservative pop culture daily show, by subscribing to our channel, turning on notifications, and of course, hitting the thumbs up. Also, our main home is on Instagram. Seriously, just trust me, that's when the real magic happens. Follow us there at Politics.
You can't kill an idea, but ideas can kill you. What if I told you that this has all happened before? The riots, the violence, the church burning, attacks on police, destruction of private property, all in the name of equality. What is the deadliest thing mankind has ever encountered in world history? Is it disease, famine, nuclear weapons? Not even close. By sheer body count, it's an idea. This is the story of the deadliest virus in the world, communism. The year is 1848. Europe is burning. Political upheaval leads to mass violent riots in over 50 countries. Buildings burn, shops are looted, and national militias are called in to quell the mob. Sound familiar? This year, an obscure socialist named Karl Marx publishes the Communist Manifesto. The Communist Manifesto outlines how to destroy capitalism and usher in communism through the means of socialism. To accomplish this goal, the manifesto pits two groups against each other based on their identity: bourgeois versus proletariat, essentially business owners versus the workers of that business. See, identity hatred is the key component that makes communism work.
The history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles, Marx writes.
Today, we would call this identity politics. The principle is the same. Define people by their groups and pit them against each other with a perceived injustice, and then violence.
Marx embraces violence. He calls for the forcible overthrow of all existing social conditions and for the common ruin of the classes.
What we are left with after this violent class warfare is a communist state. Marx spells out plainly what this looks like.
Complete state ownership of your life. No private property. High taxes, government control of communications and media, government jobs for workers, government income for all workers, mandatory government education, and government that supersedes the church in power.
These are the programs that the left is pushing today, nearly 200 years after the writing of the Communist Manifesto. And they're using identity politics and, yes, violence to do it. Remember, this is about power and control.
In 1917, Marx's ideas got their big shot. Vladimir Lenin was a Russian Marxist living in exile in Switzerland during World War I. Lenin believed wholeheartedly in communism and saw the Russian political upheaval during the war as his shot to create a communist state. Shockingly, when Lenin asked the German military for passage to Russia in the midst of a war between the two countries, Germany enthusiastically said yes.
The Germans treated Lenin and his communism as a deadly weapon to be used against their Russian enemy, a virus to infect the opponent and cripple them.
The Germans agreed to transport Lenin across the front lines into Russia, but only via a sealed train, so Lenin and his virus could not break out into Germany.
Unleashing the deadly weapon of communism on the Russian people was a horrifically effective tactic. As soon as Lenin arrived in Russia, he began to employ identity politics and social justice as a potent tool in his civil war. Lenin told his armed revolutionaries in 1918,
"Comrade, hang, and I mean hang so that the people can see. Not less than 100 known rich men. Do this so that for hundreds of miles around the people can see, tremble, know, and cry. They are killing and will go on killing."
Lenin won using identity politics to pit groups against each other, incite violence, create anarchy, and then the virus took hold.
Private property and businesses were immediately dissolved. Freedom of speech eliminated. Individual freedoms crushed. Economic collapse. Famine. Starvation. Secret police raids. Millions of Russians sent to concentration camps.
More people were sent to concentration camps in communist Russia than in Nazi Germany. In spite of practiced horrors in Russia, communism spread, and always by force.
Eastern Europe, China, Vietnam, Cambodia, North Korea, Cuba, and parts of Africa fell to communist revolutions and dictators.
It's critical to note, this mass death is not caused by foreign forces, but from within. Communism kills in the name of equality. They kill their own people. Communists do not care. They are indifferent to the suffering. Man-made famines and mass starvation in concentration camps are the norm, the cost of social justice. The death toll numbers under communism are staggering.
Eastern Europe, 1 million. Vietnam, 1 million. Afghanistan, 1.5 million. Africa, 1.7 million. North Korea, 2 million. Cambodia, 2 million. Soviet Russia, 20 million people.
But nowhere is the genocidal, sociopathic bloodlust of communism more evident than the dark history of communist China. China became a communist state in 1949 after a bloody, prolonged civil war led by Mao Zedong. After becoming a communist dictator, Mao joked about the killing of business owners in his own country, 30 million people.
"We have so many people. We can afford to lose a few." Mao's attempt to industrialize China, known as the Great Leap Forward, murdered more than 45 million people in a few short years, many simply from starvation.
A total of 65 million Chinese nationals were murdered under Mao's communism. Mao kept power in spite of the genocide. Communists never give up power, ever.
They don't have to. The state is God and you are nothing. Mao's political party remains in power in China to this day, and they exercise an ironclad grip on its people.
The Communist Party of China's failed response to the coronavirus cost many innocent people their lives.
The virus outbreak, most likely from incompetent management of their own viral labs, was made exponentially worse by the communist regime's inability to admit wrongdoing and warn the rest of the world. These actions directly led to the global spread of the deadly virus, resulting in the deaths of tens of thousands of Americans.
But as always, with communism, the worst is yet to come. Many of the organized leftists torching American cities are Marxists. They admit it, they say so, and they are practicing the tenets of communism to the letter.
We are trained Marxists. We are super versed on sort of ideological theories.
Use identity and class division to destroy private property in the name of justice. Demonize capitalists. Publicly persecute those who disagree with you. Incite violence and seize power and control.
In 1932, Stalinist-backed communists in Germany formed a group to violently clash with police, terrorize the public, and physically assault their political enemies in the street. The name of that group?
Antifasciste Aktion, Antifa. This was their symbol. Their tactics have now moved to our streets, and so have their motivations.
Vladimir Lenin and Karl Marx both agreed. The goal of socialism is communism. Power and control. It is always about power and control. What is happening right now in America is not new. In fact, it's centuries old. The tactics are meant to bewilder you and make you question your institutions. They're meant to divide us and raise what we know as America to the ground. It's a revolution by the deadliest virus known to man: communism. You can't kill an idea, but ideas can kill you. We must fight this virus to survive.